Hey, Bellamy. Hey, everybody. Oh, thank you, Bellamy. Hey. Hey, Hebrew. Happy Saturday, y'all. We hoping, as always, for a good debate. Good evening, still standing. Hey, Mom.
Hi, baby.
Hey, Holiday. Hey, it's up. It's up.
Shalom.
How you doing? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing real good. I just got back with the brothers. We was at a couple events today in the
Oh.
community.
Oh, in the community, y'all had like a guys' day.
No, I'm part of the Black Neighborhood Watch. So
Oh,
we in the ISUPK. So you know, what I mean, with the Hebrew Israelite brothers, we went to one event. Both events was about like teenage boys trying to get them to get their future together and everything like that. So we was at both events.
oh, okay. So you a Hebrew Israelite?
Yep, ISUPK One West on 25th Street, the original.
All right, okay. I haven't
A
had
part of the
any.
original school.
You
Part of the
part
original
what?
part of the original school. The original school of the Israelites started in Harlem, New York in 1969. It's called the
Oh, wow.
ISUPK, or
Oh,
the Israelite. Is That's an acronym for Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge.
so are you like the same in the same religion, or I don't know what y'all call it. I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't know if y'all call it. Do y'all call that a religion or what?
No, we wouldn't call it religion, but you could
What?
call it religion if you needed to identify it as something.
Okay, so you know Taraviak, what's his name? Taraviak, I think.
Captain Tazariak.
Yeah, Tazariak. So you do
Yeah,
the same thing. Oh,
we're in
okay.
the same we're in the same school. He actually gave me my name about 12 years ago when I came into school.
And it's called Tazariak. How can you pronounce it again for me?
Tazariak.
Tazariak. Okay.
Captain Tazariak. Yeah, he's
Captain Taraviak. Captain Taraviak. I try to remember. I
Tazariak.
try to.
He was actually out here in Indianapolis about a month ago with us and the brothers out here. He taught a class out here. We had a event out here. We went out. You know what I mean? I know Captain Tazariak very well. You know what I mean?
Oh
He know me
yeah.
very well.
I watched some of his videos.
Oh, good. Keep
Thank
watching his
you.
videos.
Thank you, Revenue.
Keep watching.
It's
It's the
just
truth.
starting, Nikki. I just came on. Yeah, I try to learn different things. That's
Yeah,
okay.
learn that Bible. Learn that Bible. It's that little voice in your head gonna say, "Follow ye. This is the way. Follow this. This is the way."
Mm.
It's gonna tell you.
Yeah, I haven't picked up the Bible in a minute.
Ain't no sweat. The Bible talk about this topic right here. It's a whole chapter on it. Psalms 80, I believe 87. I have to double check. It talks about all these nations that were confederate against us to destroy our nation. The
Oh, really?
Esau, the Edomites,
You said, let me
all
write
of
that
them.
down. Psalms what, 83? What'd you say? Psalms what?
Help put us in slavery.
We didn't hear you.
Oh, you didn't hear me?
No,
Okay,
we
maybe
didn't
I
hear
have.
nothing you said. You
Okay,
can wait till
Psalms.
she come back. She wanted to
Okay.
know.
Yeah, Psalms
Uh,
83, and name all the nations: the Edomites,
okay.
which is the oppressors; the Ishmaelites, which is the Arabs; the Amalekites, which is the so-called Jews, the small hats; the Philistines, which are Africans. All these different nations that joined to destroy our nation.
Okay. I guess she writing it down. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'm her mother.
Oh, shalom,
By the way,
shalom, 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 mother.
you muted.
Uh, it's ISUPK. You said Psalms 83 or 83. Oh, he gone. Okay. Let me see. Hey, y'all. Hey, everybody. Oh, let me see. On the comments saying hi to you. Nikki said hi.
Hi, everybody.
5. It starts at verse 5.
Yeah, he was here, Nikki. An experience, honey. That was one of the best
And it
moments so far
and it
of me
was.
going on live. What you say it is? It's up.
Psalms chapter 83, verse 5. It starts
Okay,
at
I thought you
verse
said
5.
83.
Yeah, 83, chapter 83, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Says
Let
they
me
gathered,
see.
they confederate against us. The tabernacles of Edom,
Yeah,
which is
Big
the
Mac.
man.
It was nice. I was happy about that. I posted. I made some clips, Nikki. I'm gonna post the whole thing though. Yeah. Next week I'll be uploading this week's for debates on my YouTube channel. The link is in the bio. Thank you, Shay. Yep, I will. I'm trying to figure out. I need some help, y'all. If y'all know somebody who know how to edit and make clips, because I want my YouTube videos bigger than what it is. It's just like a little box with the debates. And I'm trying to, unless somebody can maybe give me some tips. I got InShot, but I'm only streaming from my phone, and I feel like I be having storage issues because most of my debates be hours long. You know what I mean? So if somebody can give me some pointers on how I can edit that, all them hours, and then upload it, because I want to make it full screen. I need some help. I'm going to try researching so I can try to figure it out myself. But we'll see how that works. How y'all doing? New people up here. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Hebrew?
I'm doing mighty fine. I would like to answer that prompt, if you don't mind, ma'am.
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, who's really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? That would be the Portuguese in Portugal. And the reason that they started it is because they needed labor for the sugar plantations. That's the main reason they started it. Then Spain came in behind them and some other people. But that's why it started. That's what the prompt is all about. I can't hear you.
Thank
You're muted.
you. Yeah, no, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, you can expound. You want to tell us more? It's an open panel. We'll probably start when the stage get full, but it's an open panel right now. I mean, so y'all can share y'all thoughts. Because when the debate start, I really don't like people talking all over each other here. It'd be like kind of structured. So if y'all want to do, y'all got some stuff to say or whatever, we can just chat or talk about the prompt, but it ain't started yet.
Okay. Anyway, I said what I said. Anybody got a counter to that?
Yeah, we definitely got it on the nail. I don't want it to be too loud. I'm into the fact that I just want.
Your phone real bad, Soul Thinker. I couldn't hear anything you said.
We got almost 2,000.
Who is
So he
that?
hit it on the nail, basically.
Huh?
Oh, royalty. I say he hit it on the nail, basically.
Is that your phone sounding like that?
Yeah, I think his phone real low.
Yeah, your phone sound like real. Is that Royal? Your phone sound real low and like chop. Excuse me, y'all,
Yeah, I
choppy
was
like.
warehousing.
Huh?
It's still chopping.
Yeah, that's not gonna work, honey. Yeah, it's still choppy. I'm gonna drop you down. You can try again. Um, How everybody doing?
How you doing, sis? How's your Saturday going so far?
It's going good. It's going good. It's been a busy day, but it's going good.
You had a good show last night. I tried to hang in there to ride with you. I got kind of sleepy though, but yeah, you did good.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm still trying to catch up on the playback. I think we did we did about 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah, I know that's tough. That sounds tough.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we did some hours. Thank you, Netaboo. Yeah, I'm still kind of. Then I had to get up and do life again today, so it's probably we're not gonna be on here 6, 7 hours today. Hey, thank you. Oh, thank you, Hank. Yep. So hopefully we can get some good debates, some good opposition come through. We'll see. Thank you, Netable. Can y'all make sure to tap the screen, do the daily heart me that's right here, and share the live, please. Thank you. And if you looking to see full clips, well, not clips, the full debates, they're on my past debates. They're on my YouTube channel. The link is in the bio. I'm looking for somebody to help me, show me how to edit it. So just DM me if y'all know stuff like that. Make some clips or whatever. Anybody welcome to come up? Hey, cousin.
Oh, we can freely talk right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Yeah. We
How
won't
y'all
be
how y'all
starting the
doing?
debate until
Hey.
the stage get we get more people. But yeah, you can talk.
Okay, I just want to answer the prompt. Who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? I believe everybody outside of her ethnic group participated. Most people did because it was about money and resources. It really, you know what I'm saying? It was about money, resources, and taking what they could because the rest of the world, compared to what America looked like during those times, America was way more advanced. They had way more of. They had food. They had what they needed. The rest of the world didn't have anything like it. So I believe they got together and done what they did. I don't think it's one particular people. You know what I'm saying? I think it's like a multitude. But I think it did start with religion with the Catholic Church. I believe they're the main ones behind it.
What part do you think the African nations played in it?
Uh, I think they were used as foot soldiers. You know what I'm saying? Like they're on the front lines. Like they're the ones that's doing the warring and losing their lives and stuff like that. I don't think that they didn't play a major role like it. I think they were just on the, you know what I'm saying? It's like a factory work. There's some people that work on the factory, and then there's some people that work on the machines, and there's some people that oversee the whole floor. I just believe they was working in the factory. That's why they didn't get anything from it.
Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. I hope you stay for the debate. I'm sure there'll be people to oppose that theory. Because they basically apologized for it already. I believe they were complicit for 444. I believe that they were capturing other tribes and selling them.
Yeah, I believe they was complicit too. I don't think they were major players. You know what
Okay,
I'm saying?
what do
Like
you say about
they
what?
didn't get. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, what do you say about the slavery that's still going on there today? Who's at fault for that?
It's low level slavery. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't have the people that they're enslaving. They don't have the mentality or the historical knowledge that our people had, which is why they had to use us. They didn't use them. That's why when you look in America, America is blessed because of what we've done. And nowhere else in the world is blessed like that. And even though they've had slavery longer and everything else, like, we're just a different people.
Yeah, especially Black Americans. We don't sell people and stuff like that. But other cultures they do have a history of participating in those type of behaviors. It's
Being
it's
that
it's a fact. It's going on still. It's going on today.
Yeah, but like I said, they're not really reaping no benefits from it. You know what I'm saying? Look, they're getting people to do the physical labor, but there's nobody inventing anything. There's nobody coming up with new technology.
Yeah, but the people in charge of it, they living really well. It's just the people that, that they're enslaving that's not.
Yeah, the people living good, but you got to look at the land, like what is being built around them. I
What that
mean,
say about the people who doing the, the people at the top that look just like them? What that say about them?
I think if they could have done that to us, they would have, but they
Yeah.
can't. Yeah, they can't do that to us because we have different spirits.
But you think if they could do it today, they wouldn't?
They've already done it to Africans. Like they're completely discombobulated. They don't have anything going with each other. They can't get along.
They come up here and tell us, how they, from a certain tribe, and that's why they people enslaved. That's a lot of them is really happy about partaking in the slavery of our ancestors. Some of them, the ones who was shipped here, because some Black Americans was already, it was Black people here. So I
Yeah, I
know.
say majority of our
Yeah,
people are already
exactly.
here.
So
Like
those
I don't
stories,
like that African story at all because
me either.
there was so less Africans brought. There's been more Africans that have migrated here legally and legally in the last 10 years than did the entire slave trade. So I don't like the African story at all.
Hmm.
Like it's not who we are. We might have a few here and there that came over here that's mixed in with a few families,
Hmm.
but it wasn't nothing like that. It wasn't on no major scale to where our whole DNA and phenotypes change.
Yeah. You wanted to say something, Hebrew?
Yes, I'm trying to get in here because I'm basically concentrating on the prompt itself. Your brother said a lot of good things. I
Hmm.
would like to have get out that SPUK guy over there too, cause I'm Hebrew. But what I want to do is deal with this prompt for a second.
Okay, go ahead. The
Who
show ain't
is
started. It's open panel, but you free to discuss. You free to go
okay? I'm
ahead.
about to do this. I'm about to do this right now.
Mhm.
It says who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade. The Portuguese are the ones that started this thing from the jump. It wasn't no, it wasn't Psalms 83 like ISUPK guy came and said about them confederating against us. It didn't start there. It started with the Portuguese. The Portuguese was the first one to go over there in the African continent and start pulling people to work on their plantations. It was them. Then Spain came. Then the other nations came after that. So what I'm saying is, if we can't have the basic foundation for this prompt, then this is going to be opinions. Now, all you got to do is Google it. All you got to do is Google it. That's all I'm saying. I'm back quiet.
Okay, so Hebrew say, so it was all on the Portuguese, or they was just the main characters, Hebrew.
They were the main characters. They were the first ones to start this trade. They were the main ones.
When we bring up these countries, you can't really go by countries. You got to break it down by ethnic group. Because let's say if somebody wanted to blame America, they would say all Americans, and then just completely ignore the fact that Black Americans and people who call themselves white, who are really from Europe, we're not the same people. We're not responsible for what they do. So we can't really be like it's the Portuguese. You got to really be specific.
So somebody in the comments said, who provided the people to the Portuguese, Hebrew?
Oh, of course, it was the people that they was dealing with. They was trading with the Africans because that's what the Portuguese was doing. They was traders, and they
So how
traded
do you
over the.
think? So
Hmm?
Miss Hebrew, how do you think? Do you think? How did you think those Africans gained access to those other Africans to
Well, okay, I'm
trade?
gonna slow this down just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm reading the prompt, and the prompt said,
Mhm.
"Who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade?" I'm telling you that the first people that started trading human beings for as us were the Portuguese, and it was doing it in
Yeah,
Africa.
no, I'm not disputing that. Right,
Okay,
I'm not disputing that, but I want to know, like, under what circumstances do you think these Africans was getting the other Africans? That's what my question is. I understand
because
who you think, really
okay,
safe it. Mhm.
okay. Well, it just like that's the same thing that was happening in America. You had these tribes, they fighting each other. So when you became a prisoner of
Mhm.
war to these people that conquered you, then they will
Mm.
sell you off.
Mhm. Right.
Anybody disagree with that?
No, I agree with
No,
that
so okay.
100%. Like, yeah, that's real.
Yeah, so basically, like the commenter said, who provided the slavery? We know the chattel part and the transatlantic part, but in all actuality, right? If the other Africans wasn't, making prisoners of war other Africans, the Portuguese wouldn't have never got them. Or do you think the Portuguese could have came onto their shores and just took them? Y'all think they could have did it, just took them without the help of Africans?
No, it's
No,
impossible
they
for them
could
to have done
not.
it without Africans.
They could not have took them without the African aid because they couldn't get in country. That's why they got all these slave houses on the outside, on the coastlines. They have to be brought from the interior and brought to these places that we call, the gates of no return and things of that sort. They could not go in.
Well,
They built castles
y'all
on
stay
the
long
water on
enough.
the coast.
Right. You stay long
Well,
enough, you'll
well,
hear quite a few Africans. Hold on, you stay long enough and listen, you'll hear like last night's show. We heard tons of Africans say that they were kidnapped, that the Europeans and Portuguese, they came onto their shores and kidnapped and stole or kidnapped. We heard them were those Africans. They had nothing to do
so
with
some
it.
were. No,
They
so
would have
some
to
were
explain the
kidnapped.
castles and the dungeons that they built.
No, so some actually were kidnapped though. There's stories from
Okay.
areas like Cameroon and Ghana where there's where royalty, right? Families of royal people were coerced onto ships and then they were taken away. These are traditional songs that are sang in some of these countries where their own people were taken away, right? This is going against a lot of not saying that the historical narrative that Africans sold other Africans into slavery, that is true, but when you say that some people weren't stolen, that's not true. So there were definitely people who were stolen. It's just that for the vast majority of cases, because Europeans didn't have penicillin at that point, they couldn't travel inland or they get super sick, right? It was almost a death sentence to travel into Africa without any like medication at that point. Later, when they did discover it, they did start to ramp up a lot of their actions in actually kidnapping people at that point. Later, it did become illegal for slavery to take place, but illegal slavery was happening all the time, right? We know this.
Yeah, I heard they didn't want to stop. I heard they were still after we abolished, the trade from Africa. I heard they were calling it hey, who is that? They were still trying to sell them. They didn't want to stop.
No, so actually, what happened was these African countries were actually trying to, or these African kingdoms were trying to diversify their economic position, right? So that they weren't pigeonholed into just selling slaves. And when they tried this, European countries refused, right? They refused any trade with African kingdoms that was outside of slaves. And so when these European countries tried to get away from slavery, these kingdoms realized that they had no bargaining power, they had no economic power in regards to these negotiations. So the only way to keep their kingdoms relevant was to continue the slave trade. Um, but this is like well documented though, like it's in history books. We know why they wanted to do that. But we also know that there were people who fought back against powerful kingdoms that were slavers, right? Tipu Tip didn't have a good time in certain countries like in eastern or the central parts of Africa because he was a part of the East African slave trade, but he got his butt kicked and was kicked out of there, right? He was a slaver who was selling people into the Arab world, but he got kicked out of there because people were anti-slavery. Like nobody enjoys being a slave, and so people who can fight back do fight back.
So is slavery still going on today on the African continent, anywhere on the continent,
Of
Jason?
course, I can answer
100%,
that one. Of
100%.
course, it's going on because it started with the Arabs. The Arabs had the longest slave trade in Africa than any place on the planet. The Arabs. They've been kidnapping those
Their
Africans.
slave trade never stopped.
Never
Never.
stop.
Yeah, there's also slavery going on, like, just all over the world. If we can define it in a particular way, there's slavery happening in the U.S. There's slavery happening in all sorts of parts across the world. It's just a lot harder for it to happen and go unnoticed.
Hold on, Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, can you cut your camera off?
You guys hate my camera on?
I mean, why are you up on my panel cooking? It's not a cooking show.
I'm in the panel.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
With
drop you so you can
multitasking.
cook.
Oh, so you're jealous of me cooking?
Now go ahead.
Yeah, so slavery happens. Slavery happens. Like it's been one of the earliest institutions that humans are able to develop. Once you go to war and you fight, you and people get captured as prisoners. It's not hard to see that slavery develops there, or like somebody has debt. It's not hard to see slavery developing from these economic institutions. And it happens very early on, especially with the advent of things like more free markets, right? So like you see the advent of agriculture, we see a lot more centralizations of powers and economic systems that would require more people to develop systems of slavery and keeping people in in systems that would like kind of reduce their power, right? We also see one of the first earliest examples of like large scale wars being fought after this, but this is like thousands of years ago. This is like 11,000 years ago. But this affects modern society because this is kind of like what modern society is based off of, right? If we're going off of like when these institutions start, these economic systems, they start very early on, but like in the grand scheme of human history, they're very late. All right, humans have been around 300,000 years. If we're gonna be honest of how long modern civilization has been around, it's more like a couple thousand years.
Can I ask a question? This is a serious question. Do you know how rich America supposedly got from slavery? And when you look at the numbers of the African slaves brought here, to like 300,000 versus 12 plus
They
million.
changed that number. That number old.
Yeah. But I'm just trying to make a point. I know it's less than that, but I'm saying there was 12 million that went to Brazil and South America. How come they didn't produce as much money as the U.S.?
Well, because Brazil has never been as big of an economy as the United States. It's never been in such a strategic position as the United States has been.
There was no economy then. The economies were being built because there was war and colonialism going on. There was no economy anywhere.
In the
economy
Americas?
was the slave trade. So if anything, Brazil should have been the richest.
No. So America industrialized very, very quickly, right? And it put itself in a very strategic power across the Western world, and also was in a geographical location to where it wasn't indebted to being in any particular alliances, right? So it could be away from all the wars that was happening in Europe.
TikTok friendly language.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay, and we about to start the debate, y'all. Just say this. We about to start. Is everybody up on this panel participating in the live debate? I'm sure soon those 2 spots to be taken. Hebrew for is everybody now? Mari and now.
What did you ask? I didn't understand the question.
Hi, are you going to participate in the live debate?
Yeah, I did. I was just waiting for it.
You are? Okay,
for my
what about
turn.
you now?
Yeah, so
What goes on during the live debates? What happens? I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna break down the rules because some people might not want to stay. Now, let me tell you the rules. I'm gonna tell the rules to everybody. So first, it'll be Hebrews go. She addressed the prompt. I give her 2 minutes for that. And then at the end of her submission, I ask, does anyone have any rebuttals? I take up to 2 rebuttals. It depends on if it's a lot of people in here or not that many people in here. You either get 1 or 2 minutes. And after each rebuttal, Hebrew will have the last say. And then after her rebuttals, then we move on to her question, her last question. And I have questions pertaining to each debate topic. She answered her question. I give her 2 minutes. We move to the next person. The only time open discussion is really, allowed is when during rebuttals or showtime. I really don't like people just talking all over each other and coming off the mic here. So that's how I go.
All right, bet.
So everybody ready?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Hebrew. Can you address the prompt?
Yes, I'm gonna address the prompt, but I gotta address something else first. I have a very light voice, but I actually am a guy, and that is my profile pic. Okay, I'm not offended by that
Oh, I'm sorry.
because because
I'm so sorry.
go on to my page, go look at it. You feel me? But that's cool. Ain't nothing I can do about that. This is where I
Oh,
was born.
okay.
You
I'm
heard me?
sorry.
Okay,
You know what? I'm so
let's get
sorry.
that out the way. Let's get that out the way. We got that part out. All right.
Okay.
Once again, when we go to the prompt, who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? I was saying again, it was the Portuguese. The Portuguese just wanted some people to work them sugarcane fields over there in Jamaica and the Caribbeans. They wanted to work the sugarcane fields. That's why they took the people from Africa over there. Now, when we talk about the contributions of the Africans' participation in that, again, there was clan people, there were warring people, and they were fighting against each other. When they conquered the enemy, either they would kill them or they would sell them off, and
Okay, you
that's
gotta say
exactly what they did.
unalive,
I
unalive.
mean, unalive,
I love
unalive, y'all,
TikTok shop. I love TikTok. Okay,
unalive.
y'all.
I love TikTok too.
Okay,
Okay,
we got to
well,
make
you
sure
would
because
do
I
that.
can't lose my page, so I'm gonna have to
No, I
drop
got you. I
people.
got you. I
Okay.
got you. You know, we
All right.
make mistakes sometimes. You feel me? Just like you made a mistake calling me a woman. You feel me? But anyway, we're here. So that's all I had to say. I'm going to land my plane.
You sure you got a minute left?
Nah, I'm going to leave that minute alone so I can
Okay.
hear a little more
All
information.
right. Anybody else do anybody have a rebuttal to what Hebrew said? No rebuttal? Okay, Hebrew, I'll just ask you your question, okay? And then
Mm-hmm.
we'll move you down. All right. What systems were created to maintain control over enslaved populations?
You asking me that question?
Yes, everybody gets a question at the end, and since you didn't have any rebuttals, it normally go after your rebuttals, but you didn't
No,
have
no,
any.
no. I didn't know that was. I didn't know that was coming. I'm not used
Yeah.
to being on live, so
Oh, that's okay. You want me to
okay.
repeat the question?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. What systems were created to maintain control over enslaved populations?
Well, specifically with us is redlining, um, the justice system. It's so many things. I mean, I'm 64 years old. It's too much to tell. Black codes, it goes on and on. So that's all I have to answer for that one. So I'm sorry. So you go down and
It's
drop me,
okay.
buddy.
It's okay. Well, thank you so much for joining the debate. You have a good
No
evening.
problem.
All right. Bye
No
bye.
problem.
All right, Hebrew. How you doing tonight? Hebrew. Thank you. Hebrew. 1, 2.
You just know what?
Hebrews who left.
Who's Hebrew?
You
Oh,
just
I'm
know
sorry. 4, 4, 4. I'm still thinking about Hebrew.
I mean, hell, I already answered it, but I don't, like, we can't say certain stuff on this app, right? Because I was talking with one of my friends in this app, and I was saying some real stuff, and they blocked that whole message and everything. So y'all know who was really in charge, but we ain't gonna say it because that's who bought this app.
You can
Yeah.
say small hat. You can say
But
small hat.
yeah, but
Uh,
that's who I believe, like, they're behind it. But like I said, all countries participated, but they're the top dog.
mm-hmm.
And also, Bobby Hemmett says there's black nobility, and I listen to Bobby Hemmett. I follow his teachings. You know what I'm saying? So I believe
Boule.
there's black nobility as well. So I think that the people that we think are in charge aren't really in charge. Like that's just how I feel. I can't really name specifically who was. I just say it's the whole world outside of us, and I base that on what we deal with now. You know what I'm saying? And what we see now. That's the only reason why I can base it on that, just off lived experience. So I wouldn't say it's just one particular group. I think it's all of them, and there's a hierarchy of people that are against us, buffer classes and whatnot, and we're dealing with all of them, just on different levels at different paths and things that we do throughout our lives. You know what I'm saying? Like policing, banking, uh, what farming. Like we got to deal with everybody, just everyday things. A gas station. These are all different groups of people that we're dealing with, and they all know what they're here to do. So
You
that's all I
ready?
got to say.
You landed your plane. Anybody have any rebuttals for 444? No? Okay. This isn't what I call a debate, but I guess we're gonna have to keep rotating the stage until we get debaters. Okay, you ready for your question?
Yes, man.
444, okay. Who should be responsible for reparations today?
The United States government, the Treasury Department, the same people that took the money that got the money from us, and it's really majority of it's gonna be in land anyways. So I believe that's where the real money is, in land. But we need cash too. We need cash on hand, but we got to be able to put that cash into something. So I believe it's the United States government, really the world. If you like you said, like I said, the world participated. So whoever we can find out participated, that's who.
Okay, thank you for participating. I'm going to rotate you down. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jason.
Yo, hello.
Hey, Jason. You
What's
want to
up?
address the prompt for me?
Yeah. Who's really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? I would say it's really the demand of a system that requires unpaid labor, right? And that demand was created by European colonial powers who were looking to maximize their profits, and their spending be the lowest possible, right? And they did this by, creating slavery institutions, right? And the dehumanization of so many different communities. They couldn't do that with the populations that were here because they decimated their populations, and so they were able to do that by creating a supply, or not creating a supply, by creating a demand for slaves. The communities they did that with were African communities, right? So if we're gonna say it wasn't African communities that went to Europe and said, "Do you guys need a supply of slaves? We'll give them to you." Right? That's not what happened. What happened was European powers went to these areas, and then they created economic incentives to slavery institutions, right? And that's how these people were sold into slavery. That's how you get 12 million. That's how you get millions of Africans in Brazil, right? The largest diaspora of people outside of Africa is not found in the United States. It's found in Brazil, right? Millions of black people, right? That's how you get the Caribbean islands populated. That's how you get South American countries with like half the population being black. That's how you get black Americans, right? These systems that were created to maximize profit while dehumanizing different groups of people across the planet. There are multiple European countries as well who did this. The Portuguese, the Spanish, the English, and all these countries participated together, right? So you had different companies from different areas working together, and so one ship might get sent to Jamaica, and then later get sent to the Americas, or get sent to South America, and get later sent into the Caribbean. It was everybody working together against different communities.
Okay, thank you. Chat. We have your first question. Which country abolished slavery first? Anybody have any rebuttals for Jason?
I just joined, but I do.
Go ahead, Pazuzu.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of your commentary about slavery actually kind of obfuscates an obvious point, is that the continent has a long history of selling human beings into slavery. The longest, I think the I think the Arab slave trade lasted much longer, and I think it still continues to this day. If you want to keep it a buck, there's in Ghana right now there's child slavery. I mean, these are just realities that kind of we want to ignore. But like, there was just a South African human rights judge from the UN living in the UK. She was Rwandan, and she had a slave. I mean, these are cultures that are. This is something that's practiced because of the tribalistic nature of these countries and these nations and these tribes. This is what they get down on, and it's largely because they believe a bunch of ethno fascist bullshit about their superiority. A lot of these people who in cultures that practice this practice of slavery, they really think that they're the best human being, their tribe is the best human being, and therefore anybody else should be served. It's just a lack of morality. That's being out. That's where I land right there.
Jason, you got the final say.
Yeah, that's just like a highly inaccurate representation of history right there. You're taking these characteristic traits and then applying them to groups of people, rather than actually taking at the material reality and the consequences of these actions, and then you're applying those, and then you're imposing your own moral framework on these things onto groups of people who have no idea of your moral framework, right? That's where I think you're going wrong in that. But to respond to you saying that it was Africans who created, or just because of slavery existing in Africa that they created the transatlantic slave trade, that's not true. They're specifically talking about the transatlantic slave trade, right? You can't have it without Africans, but Africans did not create it, right? That's the first thing that has to be said. Africans did not create the transatlantic slave trade. Africans participated. That does not mean create, right? And then to your second point, slavery has existed in every single society that we know of, right? If you are a modern human, whatever population you're from has had slavery at some point, right? That's just a part of sadly a part of the human story, right? Now we can look at those situations and say, how can we correct these wrongs and then move further, right? We have different periods within human history that take us into different technological, and enlightenment periods that focus on, philosophy and different things that push, society forward. But to take certain histories and characteristics and then apply them as a whole as characteristic traits to populations, I would say that's extremely racist, and extremely uneducated, right? Because it has nothing to do with your tribe or your group of people or where you're from, because we see that humans on a human level, right, and an inherent level are extremely tribalistic, but what we choose to align ourselves on is going to be different. Just like how I'm assuming that you're, a pro-Black American, that you would align yourself on that tribe, right? You may not call it a tribe, but it's just how humans operate. But then to take that character trait and then apply it as an inherently bad thing is really weird.
Oh, just for clarification, to take what trait as an inherently bad thing is weird.
Like tribalism, it's not inherently bad.
Okay. Are you ready for your question, Jason?
Yeah, go ahead.
What role did African kingdoms play in capturing and selling enslaved people?
Yeah, African kingdoms played a really large role in that, actually. Like I said earlier, Europeans weren't actually able to step onto in the interior of Africa for a really long time because they didn't have things like penicillin, right? They could get malaria and then die, right? So they African kingdoms had to play a large role, but the most powerful ones were the ones who basically their entire economy ran on capturing slaves. But I wouldn't say that the vast majority of Africans themselves participated in that, because the vast majority of them weren't a part of these really large kingdoms, right? You only have a couple of them. And then those were the ones who were imposing their power and then capturing other Africans, right? This would require for large centralized kingdoms to, to actually have their militaries go out and capture people, right? And so when we're talking about slavery, we have to understand the historical context of these situations, these tribes, these nations, and understand how much power it required, how much trading, and how much how much political power you had to have in some of these regions to actually be able to capture. So let's say you're a neighboring tribe, right? And then you're trying to get into the slave trade and you're trying to capture people. If you're not strong enough, these other tribes will go to war against you and then will decimate your populations. I mean, what is it called? Not WAR. They'll go to WAR with you, and then they will decimate your populations, right? People did not take into, for example, in the Kingdom of Congo, right? It was illegal for you to capture a Congolese citizen and sell them to slavery, right? The Congolese king, he wrote to the Portuguese and said, if any Congolese person is taken into slavery, we will stop all trade with you, and there will be consequences for this. He wrote a letter to the king of Portugal, right? Because it was highly looked down upon for you to sell your own people into slavery, but it was okay, right? For you to practice that system on people who were not your people. So first you have to recognize that there was not a unified African identity here, but there was a tribal identity, right? So if you were a part of this kingdom, you weren't going to be a part of that slave trade, right? Which is why some kingdoms actually integrated themselves into others so that they wouldn't be victims of that, right? But yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Hey, Mari, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
You're welcome. You want to address the prompt?
Yeah, what he was saying, Jason, like I agree with almost like all of it. You know what I mean? Because I
Okay,
feel like
Mari,
there,
real quick, can you address the
yeah,
prompt? Who is,
yeah.
and then you can go into your spiel.
Oh,
Who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade?
I can't. Like, I mean, obviously, like, you know, we know who's responsible. You know what I mean? I just feel like I don't believe
Who?
that
We
Africa,
don't know.
like,
We don't know. Can you
I don't
say
know.
it?
I don't know, but I just feel like Africa did not create the transatlantic slave trade.
No,
I
it
believe
says
that.
who is really responsible for the transatlantic, not create. Who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade?
I just say I don't know. Like I said, like everybody has like, you know,
It's okay. You safe here. You can speak your mind. In my space, everybody has a voice. Just say what you. I mean, it's a debate. That's all, and we only can debate in honesty. You know what I mean? We all is never gonna disagree. I mean, we all not gonna agree all the time. But you okay? I want you to say it so I can start your time.
yeah. No, I just feel like, you know, it's those that wanted to build the country. You know what I mean? It's the country that, we're all living amongst, right? Like,
No, but it was slavery. It was the transatlantic went to Haiti, Brazil. So what country are you talking about, Mari? Can you please be more specific?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I just feel like, I don't know.
Is this an uncomfortable conversation for you? Are you starting to feel some kind of way inside your body?
No.
You sure?
Hmm.
Okay, go ahead. Say what you got to say. I'll give you some time.
I mean, I don't know, I guess, but everybody plays, a role and responsibility. You know what I mean? I feel like the, people of those tribes could have done better to protect their own people. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I feel like everybody plays a part. I can't just say, okay, it's this, specific place because at the end of the day, like where was your moral compass? You know what I mean? When you were selling your people too. You know what I mean? I just feel like in general, we all have like, you know, something to do with just hurting others for our own gain. That's just what I'm saying. But yeah. But that thing that earlier Jason was saying was really interesting to me that like, it's important to know the tribe you come from. Because at the end of the day, like then you have somewhere to go to for your questions and for your sources.
Mari, you talking about it's important to know that the tribe you belong to. You talking about back centuries ago, or you talking about from as far as people from actual the African continent need to know what tribe they come from.
I don't know, I guess.
You don't know you wouldn't be talking about Black Americans need to know where a tribe is, right?
I mean, I don't know if they even discuss those things, but
No, we probably would never have discussed them. I know my mother is on the stage. Nobody in my lineage that she can even remember ever discussed anything about Africa, except, when people was really on the Pan-African stuff, but like my great grandmother never was. So I don't know. So you mean the people in Africa need to know where they African tribe is, right?
I don't know, I guess.
You know, because you said it. You sure you weren't talking about Black Americans? I ain't gonna belabor that fact. I just want to know.
Sure, I guess. I have no idea.
Yeah, we wouldn't care. We wouldn't. I don't think most of us. Some of us might. I think some of us might be into that, but I don't know. I'm just a Black American. I'm FBA. Okay. Anybody got a rebuttal for Mari? I want you to stay on the stage. I'm not gonna drop you down, though, Mari. You ready for your question? Maybe somebody else can pull some better
Yeah.
answers out of you.
Yeah, maybe.
You ready for your question, Mari?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who should be responsible for reparations today?
What does reparation mean?
Reparative justice, for harms against humanity, things like that. Just like, the reparations the small hats got, the reparations the slave owners got, reparations. You don't know what reparations mean?
No.
Oh, okay, Mari. So I guess you can't even answer the questions. Did you have a particular reason or anything in particular you came up here to say, Mari, or was it just something Jason had said that you heard that made you prompt you to come up here?
No, I just like the picture.
Oh, you
That's all
like
I
the
do.
picture? What part of the
Yeah.
picture you like?
I don't know. I just think it's a cool image.
Thank you. I thought of that out my brain. I told it what to create, and that's the vision I have. You see that in the middle, what them buildings is in the middle there, Mari?
What was that?
Those the slave castles in Ghana, where they used to hold the slaves before they got shipped.
That's so messed up.
Hmm. Yep, that's over there in Ghana. They sell tour tickets to that. They sell tickets so people can walk through there, and they get money for that.
Oh
Yeah, the
wow,
slave castles.
that sucks.
Yeah, the door of no return is called.
Wow.
Yeah. Can I ask you what's your nationality? Like, what are you, Mari?
Black,
You're black.
right?
What type of black?
The same color as you.
Are you Black American descendants of chattel slavery from United States of America?
I mean, are we categorizing it differently for everybody?
What do you mean? We are delineating. I just think, everybody should be proud of who they actually are. I mean, like if you're Haitian, you should be Haitian. If you're Ghanaian, I just believe you should be Ghanaian. If you're Jamaican, you should be Jamaican. I wouldn't want to be them. I mean, not saying nothing wrong with them, but I love being a Black American. My mom loves being a Black American. I wouldn't dare call myself anything else or let anyone call me anything else. It's called pride in thyself. We all
That's a
can't be
beautiful
the
thing.
same. We all can't
And
be
that's
the
why we love
same.
the music and that's why we love the hip hop. You know what I mean? It's not like there's no division, you know?
Yeah. You don't like R&B? We created all of the music genres over here, not just hip hop.
Of
We
course.
created jazz. You said there's no hip hop, no division in hip hop.
No, it's not that there's no division in hip hop. I just feel like the rhythm of the music, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you like old hip hop or the new stuff?
I mean, old hip hop is nice.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you hold on up here with us, Mari. Hey, Simply.
Hey, how are you? I am a bit confused by Mary. I'm crushing my head.
I could have
I
talked
can't.
to her. I said, let me get on with my show. I was going to talk to her and ask her a
I,
million and one questions.
I can't figure it.
I know. She don't say much, do she? I was trying simply.
I don't know what to say, but anyway, okay. I'm gonna answer the prompt first, and I believe the Portuguese, the British, the Arabs, and the Dutch as well, because they needed body, they needed people for whatever the project that they had. Now, that's who I think were responsible. Now, I'm not taking all the responsibility away from African themselves, but I'm going to explain a little bit my view on that part. I just wanted to say to Pazuzu, I think that was the name. The generalization was really wide and a bit.
Real quick, simply. I'm sorry. I'll give you your
Yes,
time back. Mari, thank you for coming up. I'm going to drop you and rotate. I got to bring somebody up. Thank you. You can come back. Thank you. Go ahead, simply. I'll give you more time.
yeah, Pazuzu's generalization was really too general and a bit insulting. But Jason, I think his name is Jason, was right on the money. It was actually what he said was really good. Now, I'm going to say quickly what I know about African slavery. Slavery existed in African societies, in the kingdoms and in the tribes. But the concept of slavery was different. Different in which sense? People went into the war, they won the war, the tribe fought, they won the war, and those people went and live and work in the tribes that won the war. Did their life were pink there and beautiful? No. But it was a difference. The difference is that after a certain time, those people were able to marry people from those tribes and integrate. And another thing also that was different was that the level of cruelty that was done in the island in the Americas was not the same. When they were selling those slaves, and I'm not saying that they were right doing that, but what I'm saying is the notion of what the brothers and sisters will go through in those places was not something that I really believe that they grasped at that time. I don't think they did. I think they saw
Okay, land your
slavery.
plane, simply.
I'm sorry?
Land your plane. Everybody get 2
Oh,
minutes for
oh,
their
okay. Oh, I'm
submission.
sorry.
Then
Yes.
we'll see if you have any rebuttals, and then you'll have your questions. So you'll still have time. It's still
Oh,
your turn. It's just we move it
okay.
every.
Sorry. Sometimes I just talk and go on and on. Anyway, all I was trying to say is we need to look at the cultural beliefs behind what they did instead of generalizing. Not that I'm saying that it was good, but what I'm saying, you need to look at what they saw as slavery in their culture. It was a different thing. Okay, so I'm landing my plan there. My question.
Okay, just one moment. You land your
Yes.
plane. Let me see. You about to see how it works. Simply.
Okay.
Anybody have any rebuttals for simply? Anybody have any rebuttals for simply? No. Okay. All right, simply. Let me ask you your question. This gonna be a good show. When it starts off like this, y'all, this gonna be
You
it's
see,
gonna be
asking me for a question is the wrong thing because I need to think before I come up with a question.
no, I asked you a question.
Oh,
I
you
have
asked me.
yeah,
Okay,
I have
that's
a list
better.
of questions
Okay, okay,
pertaining
go
to
ahead.
this. No.
Go
Okay.
ahead. Yeah.
How did religion play a role in both justifying and resisting slavery?
Oh, a big role. A big role. Religion was used to manipulate people's mind in believing in something that was not real, the way it was presented to them, to have to accept the way of lives that was imposed upon them. Religion was a big, big thing.
Are we rebutting? Are those? Is there a rebuttal to that, or is it just that's her question?
That was a question she asked me, then I
Wait a minute, hold
answered.
on. I asked her. I already asked her if she wanted rebuttals. Nobody said nothing.
No,
So
I
that
meant to
was.
the question and answer she just gave.
Oh yeah, no, it's only rebuttals to her submission. This her final say, so we can move on to the next person after her question. You don't rebut. You don't rebut her answer to her question. Simply, if that's all you wanted to say, you still had 50 a minute or something.
Yes, okay. I mean, when I'm talking about religion, I'm talking about two religion measure, Islam and Christianity. The way it was brought in Africa, the way it was presented, was definitely used to manipulate people's mind. Absolutely. Until today, you still can see that. Till today, Africa, you can see that. So yes,
Okay.
religion is a big part of it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Simply. Hold on. I'm gonna go ahead to the next person. Hey, saved by God.
Hey, Loves, how you doing?
I'm fine. Welcome back. You want to address the prompt for me?
Yeah, so the prompt is who is really responsible for the transatlantic
Oh,
slave?
oh, hold on, saved by God. I don't know. The stage got rotated differently. I think Ahmad is maybe making a mistake. It was Pazuzu's turn. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pazuzu.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I wish I would have been available to rebut to what she said earlier. But I'll just answer the prompt. So who's really responsible for the Atlantic slave trade? Anyone who participated in it. I know we like to lay blame exclusively at the feet of the European powers, but you have entire kingdoms where their entire economy is based on slavery. And to say that, oh, they just didn't know, but let's assume they didn't know, right? Ignorance does not excuse you from the consequences of what you're choosing to do. uh, if you feel like their practice of slavery is just going to be exactly the same, but it's just not. They didn't ask no questions. To what dude was saying earlier, tribalism is poisonous to a society. When we take in these people from around the world and they bring their tribalism here, it's poisonous to our society because we become fractured. We become a mosaic society with ethnic enclaves, and this is the problem with saying that you can't judge people's morality. A mosaic society will absolutely destroy itself. So anybody who participated in slavery, if I don't want to give you something, uh, it won't happen. If I don't want to sell slaves of people who are my neighbors and countrymen or whatever, if I don't want to enslave those people, they won't be enslaved, no matter how much you ask me, bribe me, or try to entice me to sell them to you. It's just not something. But also, yes, no, the Arab slave trade was horrific. They still have caste systems to this day where you can see in their stories, you can see this all over Saudi Arabia, all over the Middle East, where they're throwing African indentured slaves, Southeast Asian slaves off of rooftops. It's just a fact. So these systems continue to this day, and I'm not particularly interested in all this stuff about not judging people, different groups by different morality. Listen, not all cultures are equal. It just is what it is. And I'm not going to sit up here and uh, not lay blame upon the African continent, especially those kings that decided that they wanted to enslave people because of their tribalism and the warfare they wanted to commit. It is what it is.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have a
Yeah, I
rebuttal?
do. I
Yeah,
do.
I have a rebuttal.
Uzo and saved by God. Okay, saved by God. You want to go first?
Right. So if everyone is to blame, honestly, then no one is to blame because you're just gonna spread the blame so widely that it's just gonna dilute the blame. Right. When the small hat people went through the H costs and they were going for their reparations, they could have blamed a whole lot of people. They could have blamed the United States for not letting them in for asylum. They could have blamed the Poles because the Poles were the ones routing them out to the Germans where they were hiding. Most of the small hat people who got unalived during the HCOS didn't even live in Germany. They lived in Eastern Europe. So these Eastern Europeans, like the Poles, the Slovenians, Belarusians, those are the people who ratted them out. Those are the people who sent the Germans to where they were hiding. But the small hats didn't go out blaming everybody, even though there was definitely blame to go around. They focused on the folks who had money. They focused on the people who were the architects of the system. The Poles didn't wake up one rosy dawn and just start, deciding to rat out the small hats. They were responding to an incentive system set up by the Germans, so ultimate responsibility belonged to the Germans. That's why the small hats were strategic in that blame when they were going for their reparations. Because if they had just blamed everyone and were pointing fingers everywhere, the Germans would have gotten off the hook and they probably wouldn't have gotten the reparations they did. So I'm gonna land there.
Zoo, final say.
Like, do you hear the foolishness? Like this is just ridiculous. You know what? Essentially, what you just said boiled down to is don't blame the countries in Africa whose kings green lighted and set up systems of enslavement for our ancestors, bro. It's just nonsensical, bro. I am so sorry that this is the leaps of logic you have to get to not say that, oh, you just got to focus on the white man. Like, this is crazy. And then you come here with this idea that we're all the same groups of people and that Black Americans are just, we all part of this diaspora, bro. And this is like, you clearly lack a Black consciousness as like that Black Americans have. If you participated in the enslavement in transatlantic slave trade, you are the one who's responsible for it. This is not the same thing. If your king set up trade routes and set up infrastructure to more efficiently do slavery in his country and to do that to his neighbors, he's directly responsible for it. You're saying that, like, oh, your analogy is saying that the neighbors of small hats in Eastern Europe who were unalived, it assumes that it's not like nation state to nation state. This is the Portuguese nation trading with the Congolese nation or whatever nation you want to talk about that participated in this trade. This is nation to nation. This is not like uh, the neighbor to the federal government, a citizen to the federal government. Look, this is nation to nation trading of human beings, and these cultures and these practices still exist to this day in these countries. And you want to come to me and say that I'm trying to blame the small guy when y'all are still doing this stuff on the continent. What are we talking about? Like, it's just nonsense.
Okay, Utho.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, rebuttal.
Okay, so basically, he was talking about how tribalism is poisonous to the United States. First of all, tribalism wasn't something that Africans really decided. It was created by the YT Europeans to separate the continent, and then they knew once they left, there would be a fight for power, throwing the country in a spiral. Second of all, he said that Africa's economy is based off of slavery when it's not really happening in Africa anymore. Like, it's in some parts, but again, that's more for the corrupt people, because in the United States, we don't know what could be happening with trafficking with Black people, things that could be horrible that we don't know. So to really say that there's a few, like, without statistics, to say that there's slavery, that is bias. And then second of all, Pazu wants to talk about how what's it called? Hold on, let me look. He said that basically tribalism was something that was created by Africans trying to come to the United States and separate them. And I'm just saying that doesn't make sense, because you guys have already been separated. You guys have gangs that are separated with each other. You have groups that don't like each other in prisons. You guys have groups that don't like each other on the streets. And we all see it. We've been seeing it. You guys don't care about anything. other than just being divided by yourself. So you guys are not unifying anything except for just, you guys need to stop focusing on trying to unite us all as a whole and try uniting your people, because you guys have more of a division than any Africans, because any African can get near each other and they'll obviously feel like they're home. That's not the same thing with black people. You guys fight each other every day. Y'all rob each other. Y'all distribute stuff to each other, really bad stuff. And Carmelo, I think his name's Anthony. He unalived 2 white boys at a track meet, and he was Black American, and he got a whole GoFundMe raised for him for $500,000, and
Okay,
that's
thank you.
outrageous. And I'll land right there.
Land your plane.
Yeah, land.
Rebuttal. I mean, final say.
Oh, the anti-blackness. As soon as you start bringing up things that tickle that insecurity in a lot of these migrants, they get to talking about a bunch of anti-black shit. Listen, ma'am, uh, tribalism is not something that's unique to Africa, but it's definitely endemic. Y'all are a supremely divided society, and only here in America can you say that you see another African and you feel at home. Y'all are from a homogenous society.
I'm gonna drop down. I'll be back in like an hour. I gotta do
Y'all are
something.
from a homogenous society, and so again, what I'm talking about is it's hard to unify with people who come from a homogenous society because they don't have a black consciousness. You can see this represented throughout history. When Africans and Caribbeans came to America, they said, "I finally achieved a black consciousness." Man, you lack consciousness when it comes to being a black person in America, and you should not be representative of us here in America. You just set out a bunch of crazy anti-black tropes about us, about how we're just a bunch of drug dealers and all this other shit. Black people are among the most socially cohesive groups of people in the world. There's not even another group that has the same political consistency that we do. We are very clear about what our politics are, what our culture is. I can go anywhere in America and see another black person who's a black American, and we can link up because we have common culture amongst us. We don't have tribalism. The gang shit is so overrated, and honestly, that's our fault for losing control of our image here in America. We let the small hat community, uh, push and promote negative stereotypes about us and our image through music and culture in institutions that we don't own. But we're fixing that. Ethnocentrism is going to fix and save Black America, and as soon as we untangle our identity without the rest of these groups of people, we'll be able to stand on business for ourselves.
Thank you, Pazuzu. You ready for your question?
Let me get it.
All right. Who had more power? Who had more power, the buyer or the seller?
The seller. It's as simple as that. It don't get more simple than that. If I don't want to sell it, you can't have it unless you take it from me. That's the end of that. That's all I got. It don't get more simple than that.
Okay, thank you. Saved by God. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Fine. You want to address the prompt?
Yeah. Who was really responsible for the really? I'm gonna underline the really part. Responsible for the transatlantic slave trade. Is my timer on, host? Who was really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? Of course, like any question, many questions, it's a complex question, but anyone who is honest will say that really the responsibility belongs to white people, white Europeans, because they were the architects of the system of slavery. As Tariq Nasheed, when he joined the panel yesterday, unequivocally stated when I asked him that question himself. But at the same time, I think some African elites played a bigger role than that is sometimes hard to become comfortable with. For example, there was the ruler from the kingdom of Dahomey. I think his name was Agaja, right? When you read about why he was involved in the slave trade, often you'll find his wife having fine silks and his ability to access, GUN powder to make his army stronger, and having valuable goods to distribute to his court officials. He doesn't seem all that coerced, to be honest. So I think there are certain individuals who show up in African history who have individual moral culpability, but Does that mean the people in present day Benin, where the kingdom of Dahomey was, are responsible for him, or Africans in general need to be denounced because of the actions of that one man? And why don't the people who are blaming Africans talk about other African rulers, like the kingdom of Benin's ruler, King SCG, who actually literally refused to participate in the slave trade? You never mentioned, they never bring that one up, right? There's a great book called Where the Negroes Are Masters by a guy called Randy Sparks, who is a professor. He talks about a slave port in some part of West Africa that, it does goes to show, right, that the Africans were responsible, but at the same time, the Europeans were the main motivating force behind it. So I think ultimately they're responsible.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have a rebuttal for Saved by God? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and ask you your question, Save. Does acknowledging African involvement weaken reparations arguments?
It depends. No, not in an academic setting, but in social settings, yeah. If you're talking to, everyday people tend to think in black and white. It's either Europeans are responsible or the Africans are responsible, right? People just want a simple yes or no answer of who is responsible. So I think, if you're not in an academic setting, it's just clear to say that the Europeans were ultimately responsible is the best approach. I thought it was incredibly embarrassing when there was that lady with the microphone who was, accusing the president of Ghana of selling her people for trinkets. I think that trivializes the slave trade. I didn't think her and the 6 people who were yelling that were helping the reparations cause at all. I think it furthered racism, and it could allow racist white tea people who are against reparations to say, well, you were sold for umbrellas and trinkets, right? Which is actually not true. So I don't think that type of rhetoric is helpful. But just like the small hats don't shy away from writing about the small hats who were complicit with H-Man and who were routing out other small hats, I don't think Africans and FBA should be ashamed about or shy about writing about with nuance and clarity and moral honesty Africans who were responsible for participating in the slave trade. There used to be a small hat woman in the Netherlands during World War II who would go with the H-Man people and point out to them people walking down the street, this one's a small hat, this one's a small hat, because she could recognize her people. The small hats write about her, so what's the problem about writing about the king of Dahomey who was greedy and sold his people for some silks, right? But ultimately, the small hats know the Germans are responsible, and we need to know that whites are responsible.
Thank you so much, Save. Lorcy? Lorcy. 1, 2. Hello?
Lorisi.
What is it?
Lorisi.
Lorisi. Okay, hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Okay, you want to address the prompt for me?
Who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? Yeah, I would say whites are responsible. I understand why a lot of people now you want to talk about how African kingdoms played a role too. But what a lot of people don't realize is how when they want to dilute the impact of how you have so many white empires that came out of that historical event, and where are the black kingdoms today, right? So somebody said earlier how the sellers or the sellers always have more power, but that's not always true. Like if you think about an example, like if I want to sell my goods to Walmart, even though I'm selling, Walmart ultimately has the power because they're bigger and more powerful than me. So back then, um, we didn't have they didn't have internet or the whole connection that we have now. So they maybe didn't have the same information about how much European powers had, how much they had power, but they did have the power. And that's why they were able to do what they did.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have a rebuttal for Larici? Larici? No rebuttal?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have one rebuttal. What Larici, do you? I feel like a lot of Africans, we need to work on, instead of just always, saying poor us, the white team man controlled everything. Need to grapple with the complexity of exactly how Africans were also complicit, right? Because Africans also have agency. And do you feel that it seems like sometimes Africans listening, not on this panel specifically, but on TikTok, sometimes that complexity is ignored and everything is blamed on the white man. And I feel like that sometimes, takes away from things. And, the white man, yeah, they had their role, but sometimes the other part of the story needs to be also covered too.
Yeah, I
Larici,
mean,
final say.
yeah, I don't think I take away their responsibility because nothing is black and white. There's always, these were all complicated people who did complicated things. So I'm not trying to take away their agency, right? They weren't saints, and they didn't, right? They were out for their own money too, right? Tribalism is something that's always existed anywhere in humanity. It's not unique to Africa or Europe. Just like the Frenchmen wanted to be above the pole or whatever, so the same dynamic was happening in Africa. But that doesn't mean that on a whole, what the Europeans were able to build goes way beyond how Africans benefited.
Okay, thank you, Larici. You ready for your question?
Yeah.
What evidence is often ignored in mainstream history about the transatlantic slave trade? What evidence is often ignored in mainstream media?
I don't think I
Um,
understand the question.
what evidence, like, is often, you know how we learn a lot about well, not a lot, because I'm learning more on my own, but you know how people learn about the transatlantic slave trade. Do you think it's
Yep.
certain evidence that's ignored or not talked about?
Um, I mean, I think now a lot of people is getting more educated on the topic, but I know in the past a lot of people didn't know or understand how wide it was, how it affected the whole American continent, not just America. So a lot of people didn't understand that part, and a lot of people didn't realize, just how widespread it was, and how you had, the whole that one historical event basically completely changed the world. And, that's something that I think a lot of people are ignorant about.
Okay, thank you, Larici. Hey, Jason, welcome back. You want to address the prompt again?
Yeah, I can address it again. I just wanted to come up and correct some of the things that somebody was saying earlier. But
Helicopter, you can come up if you want. Go ahead. Thank you.
yeah, again, I'll reiterate the most responsible parties were the parties that were creating the demand for slaves, right? If I have an orange tree and then you ask to buy my oranges, you won't put the blame on the orange trade on me, right? That demand was created by you, right? The person who creates the demand is the one who initiates that trade, right? Who initiates that economic system that's happening in that situation. But I won't say that me providing those oranges is not going to be I'm not going to be at fault either, because I am providing you what you want, right? I am a part of that transaction, that trade, right? But if we're asking who's responsible for it, we're talking about who creates it. We're talking about who facilitates it. And we're also talking about who holds the leverage and the power in that situation, right? Okay, let's say you take my oranges and you decide to plant your orange plantation, right? An orange field, right? You might still need some of my oranges for the time being, but you also decided that you're going to start growing your own field, right? So you could be using that against me in the future. But at this point, I might have been invested into this orange trade so much that I don't have a choice but to keep trading with you. Right? This might not be a one-to-one comparison, but if you can understand my analogy here, yes, power imbalances can happen in a trade scenario. It's not always equal, and it's not always parties that are providing the supply that are the ones creating the demand. That are the ones profiting the most off of this scenario, right? We know European powers profited way more than any African power ever did from the transatlantic slave trade. Way more, right? There's countries that wouldn't exist today without the transatlantic slave trade, right? Especially their economies. Their economies were backed off of free labor. We know this, right? A lot of these European industrial countries, were able to profit off of not having to pay any sort of labor coming from the Caribbean, coming from the Americas, all sorts of
Okay, 20
plantations.
seconds, Jason.
Yeah. But if we're talking about responsibility here, we have to talk about, like, if you get into a car accident with a semi, going the wrong way down the highway. Yes, you're gonna be, as your car is involved, you're gonna be partly responsible, but the semi truck is gonna be doing the brunt of that work there in that situation. But I land my plane there.
Okay, you ready for your question, Jason?
Yeah.
How did European powers justify slavery morally and legally?
Oh yeah, they use all sorts of tactics, right? They use anything. They utilize religion, right? They utilize all sorts of aspects of, Christianity that could be read and interpreted as how slavery was used in the Americas. I'm not sure if you're making those gestures for me. Okay. Um, that they utilize all sorts of religious, justifications. They used scientific racism, all these sorts of things that were highly illogical, right? In their justification, but it was enough to convince those who were involved, to participate, right? If I can convince you that the person you're enslaving is not a human, right? You won't really have a problem with that, right? If I can convince you to hate them, if I can convince you all sorts of things, you won't have a problem with participating in that institution, especially if you don't even gain, right? If I'm a poor white person in the South, and I see that my neighbor has tons of slaves and I'm not gaining a dime off of him owning slaves, if I go to church on Sunday and they're telling me that these people are accursed people, that they're coming from a cursed, population, and that God is punishing them for who they are, yeah, I'm not gonna have any problem with him, having slaves. You know what I mean? Um, the dehumanization tactics were actually so they were so potent that it affects people to this day. Anti-blackness is deep seated within so many different populations across the planet who had no contact with black people. If you go to some parts of Asia, they have racist rhetoric towards blackness, and they've never met a black person in their life. Where does this come from? Right? Colonization and anti-blackness and all these things, developed from ways to justify enslaving populations, from just their existence, right? There was no justification for it, but they used things like religion, things like scientific racism to support their enslavement.
Okay, 1 second. Larisi, thank you for coming. I'm going to rotate you down. Thank you. You can come back up. if you want to, after I rotate the stage. Thank you. Hold on, Revenue. Okay, anybody got any rebuttals for Jason?
I do.
AT,
That was his
please.
question, though, right?
No, that was his submission. That wasn't his question.
Love Worlds, how are you?
Hey, AT. I'm doing good. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Hello
welcome.
to the panel. So I guess I have to propose
Okay,
a question.
1 second,
Oh,
AT.
sorry.
So it was only ATP for rebuttals for Jason? Okay, go ahead, AT.
Okay, thank you. So, Jason, I was trying to just get some clarity on the analogy. So, you were saying if the person who has the oranges grows the oranges, they're not responsible. The person who is coming to buy the oranges are responsible. Is that what you're saying?
So I said that if I have an orange tree already and you come to me to ask to buy my oranges, right? The person facilitating that trade is the one coming in to buy the oranges, right? The oranges
Okay.
exist regardless of whether you're looking to buy them or not.
Right. Okay, so now I'm clear. So I was right. Okay, so the problem with the analogy is that you had oranges to begin with that were not free. They were actually, if we're going to use actual factual, right, evidence of what the issues are today, is that your oranges were being held captive, maybe because you were in a garden, I say raw or WAR with another person who had apples. So I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And then the person who comes along says, hey, I'm going to trade with the person who has apples to go ahead and take over your orange crop because I want those orange crops, but I need you all to be, going against each other. And you don't have no weapons to protect yourself with the orange crops, but the apples do. So now y'all going at it, and you're like, oh my God, I need something. So that same person, that my enemy is my friend. No, they're your enemy actually. And what happened, according to history, is that the continent, the kingdoms at the time, and the tribes within those kingdoms prior to colonization, we're talking about 12th centuries, etc., moving forward, they were responsible for holding over 60% of persons in bondage, whether it's through, different tribal wars or things that were going on, but they were being, propped against each other because colonialism says, hey, I can't take on the whole continent. I have to find a way to get these folks to go at it with each other and then divide and conquer. The problem is they divided and conquered themselves into a situation that ended up resulting into world harm. And then now, when it
20
comes
seconds,
to,
AT.
oh, sorry, what'd you say?
20
Oh,
seconds.
20 seconds. Oh, so now what we're seeing now is the results of people trying to piece together the timeline, and they're not liking what they're hearing coming out of, I think, historic record. And so I'll land it there.
Jason, final
Yeah,
say.
yeah, I have no problem with acknowledging the the histories of African participation in the transatlantic slave trade. I have no problem with that. I also think that acknowledging that is it should be a part of looking at the situation more objectively and more analytically, right? But I think the issue that like I think you have with my analogy is that like the institution of slavery existed in the first place. But as I mentioned earlier, slavery for you to expect slavery to not exist in Africa at all, is I'm not going to say it's insane, but you're going to be holding Africans to a moral framework that you don't hold anybody else to, right? Because slavery existed in every single society across the entire planet for hundreds of years, thousands of years, right? I went into a little bit of like a historical like analysis earlier about how like these types of institutions start, but they have thousands of years worth of history, and in every single population, it's disingenuous to expect only African populations to not have these systems. I'm not going to say that they're correct. I'm not justifying them at all, but I'm just looking at the ugly truth of human history itself, not just African history, human history, right? And so when European powers figured out how to monetize and be able to profit immensely from from African slavery, they took that opportunity and they ran with it, right? Again, it's not about saying that African populations don't have any responsibility in the transatlantic slave trade. We're talking about who shares the majority of that responsibility and who created that demand, right? Who profited the most? If you want to look at responsibility, let's just look at who holds global power, who held the bargaining chips, right, in these transactions. It's very simple. Like I'm not saying that slavery in any point in human history was ever okay, or that African communities are absolved of these situations. But when we're talking about a unified African homogenous identity and the practice of slavery across centuries in Africa, we have to be historically accurate here. Chattel slavery was not practiced in the way that it was in Africa compared to the Americas or across Europe. It just wasn't. Right. We know how slavery was practiced. We know how different communities were actually interconnected due to their practice.
Okay, land your plane, Jason.
Right. But yeah, to address what you said, I understand it, but that is a disingenuous understanding of the situation.
Okay, Jason, you ready for your question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why is the full global scope of slavery often not taught?
I think it depends on the population that's being referred to. Like some populations, like when it comes to like global atrocities, would like to just like forget it and not address it at all. And some populations would actually like, bring more eyes to it, right? If I can bring like an analogy to it, we can talk about like Japan's refusal to acknowledge any of its actions in northern China, like during the World War II. They just don't even recognize what they did, right? There's no monuments in Japan. There's nothing, right? But everybody knows the atrocities that it committed in World War II. And some of these European powers would also like to do the same when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade. They refuse to acknowledge just how much they gained politically, economically, from the participation, especially during industrialization and different things like that from the transatlantic slave trade. And it's just a convenient way to not have to be faced with a lot of their actions that they took. But yeah, that's my response to that. The plane is landed, Natabu.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Yuto, you want to address the prompt? Welcome back.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay, so
You're welcome, Yuto.
let me read now. Who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade is like my millionth time addressing a prompt. So, in my opinion, or in factual claim, I believe that it was 90% Europeans doing it and 10% of corrupt African leaders who took power due to European colonization. And I can explain why for that. When European colonizers invaded Africa after the Berlin Conference, they divided everything. So when it got divided, forcefully tribes had to be created by the Europeans to divide everyone there. And when they divided everyone there, it got crazy. Like tribes were trying to defend their, like, let's say for example, we're talking about Ghana. Let's say the United States wants a part of it, the Netherlands wants a part of it, and Spain wants a part of it. They're all gonna go on each side, and on each side there's gonna be a group of people inhabiting that area, and they're gonna have to form a tribe, or gonna have to form some sort of like group together to defend themselves from it. So that's how tribalism was created by the YT and Europeans. And then, as that said, once those countries gained their independence and the YT people left, all those tribes that were created because the YT people were fighting for power. Because now who's going to run the entire country now? The new formed country, there's a fight for power now. And that turns a country to civil war, makes it horrible, and that's what brings corrupt leaders. So to say that corrupt leaders are the reason for the transatlantic slave trade is completely denying factual documentation. It's recorded that some empires that had really, really corrupt leaders were selling their people, but they were not saying like, I'm selling this FBA. This person's gonna be an FBA. I'm shipping them off. They were doing it to everyone there that was African, and it wasn't a direct target to y'all. So it was only a 10%. It's a statistic, and you can go Google it. And I'll end my plane right there.
All right, thank you, Utho. Anybody got any rebuttals for Utho?
I
Got
got
one.
one.
Helicopter and Sensei came off. Was that you? I saw
Yeah, that
first
was me.
Sensei. I know helicopter, but
Yes,
Sensei.
ma'am.
Okay, I saw him first. At. All right, go ahead, helicopter.
All right. So she made the claim that, in her opinion, it was 90% European, 10% African. And what she used to support her claim was the fact that the Berlin Conference is what created these tribes that began, going at each other. I want to dispute that. That is incorrect. By the late 1400s, there were four tribes that are now known as kingdoms. Well, they were kingdoms then, they're now known as tribe, that controlled 60% of the captives. Okay. The Elmira Castle was built in the late 1400s by the Portuguese as a gold trading post. They did not come for African captives. It wasn't until the mid 1500s when the Africans ran out of gold, right? But they had already been introduced to the pew pew, and they still had a demand for the pew pew because they were going at each other inside of the country of Africa. And at that point, they started offering African captives in exchange for the pew pew. Okay. And one of the other things you said was the Berlin Conference was the one that created those tribes. That is also incorrect. The Berlin Conference didn't happen until the late 1800s. Those African kingdoms were raiding lower tribes in the late 1400s and the 1500s, and they were supplying captives from those tribes to the Europeans that needed the demand for the newly discovered sugar plantations. And with all the information, I land my plane.
Okay, Utho, final say.
First of all, he's clipped again lying. The Berlin Conference was not in the late 1800s. I do not know where you got that statistic from. That is not true. It was mid 1900s actually. And second of all, I never said that the Berlin Conference created them being sold. I said the Berlin Conference basically when the countries invaded it, it didn't have to be the Berlin Conference. Anytime Africa was invaded or anytime someone was there to extract the natural resources or to take the people, there was always somebody getting separated. There was always inhabitants of certain areas. So yes, you can call it tribalism, you can call it a group, you can call it whatever you want. But when there's certain people inhabiting certain areas, you can call it whatever you want. Because let's say, for example, my family, I got 30 family members, and we all live in this one group. And we expand, and then we keep getting outsiders and all that, and make a small community there. That's people inhabiting there, maybe a few thousand years ago. That's an habitation of a singular group. You can call it a tribe, you can call it whatever you want, but that's how it's normally formed. So I don't know why you're twisting my words and saying that the Berlin Conference was the reason for all this. You're just lying your way through it. And second of all, for your response, I'm not gonna be lying to you. You can search it up. 90% was Europeans and 10% were Africans. And yes, if they ran out of gold, I agreed with you. I said that there were some corrupt leaders that were selling their people. But why are you trying to generalize it as every single African kingdom selling its people? It's a small percentage, and you're over exaggerating it and making it look like it's a way larger percent to try to glorify the white T-man. It's not working on anybody who's educated. You're just stupid, and you keep pulling statistics out of your fat, smelly ass. And I'll end right there.
Sensei, your rebuttal.
Oh yeah, she said it was only a couple African kingdoms. You're not gonna convince me that a couple YT men who wore wigs and were out of shape showed up on that continent and stole 12 million, 13 million people without help. You know what it takes to get 12, 13 million people abducted and shipped off? It had to be more than a few African kings or kingdoms involved in this to get 12 million people. Come on, man, that just don't make no kind of sense. So you telling me a bunch of old YT men with wigs and wooden teeth pulled up to the continent and stole all these people, and y'all had no clue? Y'all were just oblivious to it all? Man, y'all was all involved in that kind of stuff. Stop playing. Because them people wouldn't even have been able to go over there and navigate that land to find people without dying, without, you know, getting X'd off. They would have got eaten by something, all kind of stuff. Y'all helped them do that the same way when they came to America. They had to link in with the Native Americans to get anything going because they were just so unequipped. You're not gonna convince me that them YT people is that crafty that they showed up to that continent and just only dealt with a couple African kingdoms to get 12 million people, man. That just makes no sense. The numbers don't even make no sense. I'm done.
You though, final say.
This is really funny. He said that the YT people couldn't just go into the continent and what's it called? Just take 12 million people. Yes, they could. They were far more advanced than any African empire or tribe or whatever you want to call them. They were far, far, far more advanced. So let's just put it there. Anyone in Europe had, pew pews. They had all these advanced technology that Africans didn't have. So they could have obviously went there and did whatever they wanted to those people because yes, it's documented. But for you guys to say that it was a majority of African kingdoms selling them, show me that this isn't true. I feel like there was basically I can say like I can say like it's kind of a sort of a decentralized government. So what I'm thinking is that these European people went in there and gave the power and let the people of power still stay there as a decentralized government and let those people just stay there who was like running it. But in exchange, they had to give up people and they had to give up their own population as corrupt leaders. There's been corrupt leaders in the United States. There's been corrupt leaders everywhere. So, and then next I want to answer about the biggest claim that Black Americans like to use against us is that you guys are all tribalist. The thing is, you guys kind of made up your own tribalism, like basically sort of like that in the United States. And let me explain. You don't see no white T people having like gang affiliation, sort of like that. It's majority more black people that you see doing that. So you got them Crips, you got the Bloods. I don't know anything for that because I'm not involved in that, but I know there's hella gangs that are heavily involved with black people, and more primarily, I would say Black Americans. So y'all already have your own sort of tribalism, your own clans, and all the gang affiliation and gang signs that you throw up. So yeah, and everybody knows that's true. It's depicted in
Okay,
movies
say
and it's
that you
seen in real
gotta
life.
spell that. I don't know if that is helicopter and sensei. Can she say the G word like that?
What?
I don't think she can.
Huh?
I don't think I don't think you can say GANG G GANG. I don't
Oh,
think you I think you gotta
I don't
spell
know.
that. That'll get no
P-A-N-G.
TikTok. So that's one of the words you so we gotta spell that, okay?
Oh, alright, my bad.
All right.
But
I
I'll learn
love
that
TikTok
playing.
shop. I love
I
TikTok
love
shop.
TikTok Shop and F1.
I have a rebuttal. Can I have a rebuttal,
Sure,
please?
I'll allow that. And
Okay,
I'll allow MTP rebuttal as well. Go
okay.
ahead.
I can't see her name, but it's the young lady who just spoke. Um, I'm not going to tell you.
Her name is Yutho.
Okay, Yuto, I am not going to tell you what to say or how to say it, but I need you to be very careful when you're generalizing negative statements here because I'm listening to you. I am not Black American. I'm African. But the way you're talking are very negative toward African American or Black American. You kind of have to be careful about the generalization you're making. I just wanted to say that. And another thing that I wanted to say is maybe as a group, we kind of, in this conversation, we need to really define what we call tribalism because tribalism has positive and negative. It's not automatically negative because when people are grouped in tribes, it's because they share things in common. And sometimes, most of the time in Africa, is culture. Is everything in tribalism okay and good? No. You have certain things who are not because they also make people go against each other. But tribalism as a concept is not, it cannot be seen negative. But let me go back to Utah. I don't know. I only see UTH. I
Yutho.
understand, Yuto, I understand you have your position, but be careful then in the way you express it that you don't generalize and offend a large group of people. I'm not African American or Black American, but I'm getting offended by certain things you're saying. Don't generalize. This thing of gang and all that, no, come on. You have gangs
You
everywhere.
gotta
It's
spell
not
it.
something black.
You gotta spell it. You gotta spell it.
Oh
GANG.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
have to
love
spell it.
TikTok.
Okay. This mean, nasty little group is not something that is just typically Black American. Don't go there because that's a stereotype that people put on Black American, and that is not right. Because you have this nasty little group in every single population in United States or in other countries. Don't do that because then you are emphasizing a stereotype that is not right. And I land my plane.
Thank you, Simply. You throw final say.
It's funny because this is the first time I've seen an African, in my opinion, on the panel bootlicking FBAs. So funny to me. She wants them to appreciate her so much. They don't talk good about us. They don't like us. That's the thing. They look at their panels. They show pictures of us, that are caught off guard, or specific tribes that have cultures that are African. They mock what we eat. They mock what we do. Why would we ever respect them? Why would we ever do that? No,
Let me
stay on
tell.
mute, stay on mute, stay on mute, stay on mute. Hush, hush, hush. Stay on mute. Let me
Oh, don't
continue.
be
Let me continue.
disrespectful.
Let me continue. Let me continue.
Don't be
Let me
disrespectful.
continue. Let me
Oh
continue. Stop taking my
Lord.
time.
You don't even respect your
Don't
elders
be
like
Oh
that.
my God.
disrespectful. Don't be
30 seconds
First
is
of all,
wasted.
no, no, no.
Wasting my
No, 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 no.
time.
No. Now you're gonna listen to me, young lady.
I'm
First
not
of all,
listening to you.
first of
I'm
all,
not listening
I'm
to you. It's
not
my turn, ma'am.
bootlicking. Showing
Ma'am, it's my
respect.
turn. Ma'am, it's my
Showing no,
turn.
no, no.
Ma'am,
It's
it's
gonna
my
be my
turn.
turn because you
Ma'am,
insulted
you're just
me, so
wasting
it's
30
gonna be my
seconds of my
turn.
time.
Can you please mute her so I
Ma'am.
can give her an answer because she can be insulting. First of all, I'm not bootlicking or whatever you
Ma'am, you
call
don't know
it.
what you're
I
talking about.
am
Just chill.
African and I'm
Ma'am.
very proud of
You
being
just took time
African.
from me.
Listen to me, but at the
Ma'am, I
same
don't want to
time,
listen to
I
you, ma'am.
show respect to my Black American
Ma'am, they
brothers
don't
and
like you.
sister.
You're
I
bootlicking,
don't
ma'am. They don't
need
like you.
to boot
Ma'am, they don't like
lick
us. Stop
anyone. I
bootlicking,
do
ma'am.
not have to
Ma'am,
boot
stop getting
lick
aggravated.
anyone. If
Ma'am,
no,
ma'am,
you
ma'am,
say
calm
they
down.
say
Ma'am,
negative things about us.
ma'am,
Yes, they do. But we
ma'am.
also say
Be quiet,
negative
ma'am.
things
Ma'am,
about
chill.
them. You
Ma'am,
are
chill.
disrespectful.
Ma'am,
You can make
can
your
you handle this
point
live?
without being
Ma'am, can you handle
disrespectful.
this live?
No, 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 no. You are
Can you be
disrespectful.
respectful and handle this
No,
live?
no. You are very. You know what? You know what? Whatever. You
Ma'am,
cannot
ma'am,
argue with
ma'am.
empty barrel. You're an empty
Ma'am,
barrel.
ma'am, calm down, calm down. Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Let me continue now. Oh my God. Okay, can I get my time back? She just wasted my entire time to rebuttal her.
Where the bell? When the last time you got a whooping?
She sound like she's about 15 years old.
She
No
ain't
emotional
though. She in
You can tell
college.
me whatever you want,
She in
but I have
college.
more education than
She just
everybody on
sound
this
like that,
panel.
y'all. She
Maybe
like
not revenue, but
she
everyone
only
else here
18.
everybody
got a
sounds bad.
GED.
Oh,
What you
baby
say?
girl, I have 2 master's degree and I speak
Ma'am, I didn't
fluently
ask
6
you.
languages.
I didn't
You
ask
are
you, ma'am.
ignorant.
Your
Ignorant
education
50
Oh
has
my
years
brought
old.
you
God,
to
can I
bring
just
up
rebuttal,
brought you to
please?
bring up the Berlin conference in
Okay,
a
hold on, you though.
conversation
You got your next
about the
rebuttal. We gonna
transition.
let that go between you and your sister
Okay.
simply.
Yes,
Go
disrespect.
ahead. Go ahead, ATB. I'll start your time.
Thank you. I just, gosh, I'm so sorry, simply, because this is not about hating Africans. That's not what this is about. I think the live has been very, respectful thus far, outside of you throwing at homonyms at people because she doesn't know how to insert actual factual information. So since they didn't deserve the disrespect, and neither did you, the actual information to the question, and I answered it, who's responsible? And I stated that the African nations, kingdoms at the time, held 60% of the enslaved internal population because they were WARing with each other. They were looking to trade to actually one up one another. So Sensei was right on the money with that information. He was correct. That is factual information. You can Google that. And it wasn't disingenuous of me in the way I answered Mr. Jones earlier, because I was speaking from information that is widely known. The Germany, Great Britain, France, and Portugal, Belgium, European nations at the time were not large enough to defeat the kingdoms by themselves. They had to have internal help, which they got from kingdoms that were warring with each other, tribes that were going against each other, and they were holding each other as POWs and as enslaved population. And people like to kind of glorify this and say, no, they were indentured servants, and slavery was a thing because that's how Africa acquiesced to one another. Well, then you are admitting to the fact that, again, in order for tribalism to work, you have to actually go against one another and sell someone out for the benefit of something. And it was GUNs, it was for other crops and things. And so there were many things that took place, and they went along with it with the Europeans. 60% Africa held slaves in population because they were the largest. Europeans only took 40% of the responsibility because they took people across land. But remember, kingdoms were already traveling across seas.
Okay,
So
Larry, you're
again,
playing
yes,
ATP.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That information can't be remissed either. And chattel slavery only happened in the United States because it did not happen elsewhere. And I'll land there.
Final say, you
Say it
go.
happened elsewhere, but anyway.
Okay, so this.
Wait, you though. What you say, ATP?
Chattel slavery happened elsewhere, but in context to chattel slavery that happened domestically here in the U.S., what in the residual effects, we are seeing the results of it because we are the descendants and other people are not. I'll end there.
Okay. You though?
Okay, so I just want to address something right off the top of my head real quick. They like to call me
Pull it
uneducated,
up from Google.
but I seem to have a higher level of history understanding than a large majority of people in here. They're low IQ individuals that don't understand how a simple debate goes, and they get really aggravated and upset and come off their mute, and they don't have any impulsive control. They only do impulsive actions, and it shows. It's very well visible here. So with that being said, she said that 60% of Africans were holding the slaves and getting them off the ship. First of all, that statistic isn't proven in any shape or form. It was said, first of all, that Europeans the Europeans went into Africa. They got to offer whatever they wanted to do and take the people. Because when did the Congolese people, did they have anybody selling their people? When King Leopold went there and executed 10 million of them? Was that okay? So did they have any?
That's
No,
different time
no.
periods.
The third time
Different
coming
time
off mute.
periods.
Can you
Which
just
time
shut
period
up?
are you speaking?
Shut
I
up,
need
girl.
you. Hold
Shut the
on.
hell up. Shut the hell
You
up.
said that
Shut
you
the
have
hell
a
up. Shut
higher
the hell up.
IQ.
Shut the hell up.
Which
Shut the
time
hell up.
period are you
Shut the
talking
hell
about?
up. Take your medicine because you're
What
cuckoo right
time
now.
Oh,
period
by
are
Take
the
your
you
way,
talking
medicine.
about?
Yuto,
Take your
I'm from the
medicine.
Congo, so I can
Okay,
teach
y'all.
you
Take your
Can we
something about
please?
the
medicine.
Congo.
Take your
Soba.
medicine.
Can we
Because
please
ain't
let
nobody
her
understand what
land
you're
her
saying.
plane, or we're gonna
Yes,
have to
I'm
give her
sorry.
more time. We're gonna have to
I
hear
need
you
my
all
time.
over.
Please don't. I apologize because it's
Fourth time. Fourth time coming off mute. Something is wrong
my
with your
brain
girl.
is dying listening to her. She died. She
You
didn't
have,
even
you
graduate
have a
high
mental
school.
issue. Control what you do, really. Do you have ADHD? I want to know.
Do you have school
Oh my
reports?
god. You cannot stay off your microphone for more than 2 seconds, ma'am. Holy shit. You're not a listener, you're the talker, I can tell.
Okay, you though. You got. I got to give her some time back. Go ahead. I
Yeah,
give her
they
one
like
more
messing
minute.
with my time.
All right, her parents getting deported.
Oh my god. Okay, so with that being said, they don't understand what they're talking about when they say that. African elites, they were pushed into having to undergo an unfair agreement with Europeans. Europeans could go into there, give a deal that wasn't going to be accepted, and it got sold. The thing is, it was more of a decentralized government that was spread by Europeans. The Europeans, when they got there, they got to do whatever they want. In majority countries, you can only pull up about a few tribal kingdoms that were selling their people. You can't pull up others that had Europeans invade there. Nobody sold them. They just went there and unalived all the people there. They just went there and did whatever they wanted there. And there was nobody, not a single person there that was able to actually do something for them. So, with that being said, I just feel like it's kind of crazy for a lot of FBAs to really push all the blame on Africans and try to make it look like the Africans are the ones that are doing all the work. No, the Europeans went in there and offered horrible deals to these Africans,
Okay, land
and the
your plane,
Africans has to be
Yuto.
involved in it. And I'll land my plane.
All right, Yuto, I got your question ready. You ready?
Yes, I am.
Is silence about certain facts intentional or ignorance?
Silence of like we're talking about during the transatlantic slave trade, or
Yeah, about the
yeah,
fact.
facts about the transatlantic slave trade aren't really silent, in my opinion, because I feel like it's taught. It's generally taught in most American curriculums around the world. I'm not really sure, but specifically, I remember learning about slavery and when I was in elementary school and partly middle school, so I remember that personally. But certain facts that people want to include just are facts that came from corrupt leaders, because there's corruptness everywhere. So there was corrupt leaders who had poor actions against people involved in the transatlantic slave trade. So yes, they sold them to get resources, but the way that FBAs are making it, as if that it was like 80% Africans, 10% Europeans, and then like a nice 10% Arabs. They just like to put it like that, and it just doesn't make sense, because primarily, if we're blaming anyone, it's the Europeans, because if they were gonna the Africans really wanted to enslave y'all or their people, then they would have done so. And I can actually prove another example for this. In the Roman Empire, almost everyone there were just enslaved. They didn't care who you were. They didn't care about anything. But yeah, you don't see Italian people going to the Italian government saying, "Hey, give me reparations for that." Same thing for another analogy. The small hat people. You don't see them going to other people who didn't help them during the Holocaust. They didn't have anyone to help them during that time. So instead of putting the blame on one person, and they did put the blame on one person, but they could have put it on so many other people who were allies with Germany at that time and could have easily asked for reparations from them. And that's why I feel like Israel disagreed with Ghana on that being the worst thing that happened, because again, Black Americans are trying to make it look like that they're the only ones that experienced chattel slavery, though it happened everywhere in majority places in West Africa. So I feel like why facts are silenced is because certain facts are being made up by Black Americans that are twisting the story to glorify white Americans, and I'll land right there.
All right, hey Sensei, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm
I'm
good.
gonna come back in an hour or so.
Okay.
Okay.
Go to bed. Go to bed
Uh,
and take
I'm
a
not going to
nap.
bed. You can shut the F up.
Matter of fact,
Dirty
say
ass
your
girl. Go watch your
prayers.
ass.
Shut
Go wash
yourself
your ass.
in.
Wash that
Okay,
butt,
good
girl. I
night,
know you don't
Yuto.
want
Did
to.
your mother know you
All
use
right,
that
see you
mouth
in an
a
We know you
lot?
hour.
fat, girl.
All right, bye bye, Yuto.
okay.
Okay, Sensei.
Who's
Uh,
responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? Man, this is like a 60-40 split, in my opinion. If you were to ask me who's responsible for the smugs in our community, I'm gonna say it's the plug and the dealer. They both have their part to play. They both, without the dealers, the plug had nobody. Without the dealer, the plug had nobody. They go hand in hand. So, and for people to try to fall back on that, oh, it was only 1%, oh, it was only 5%. There's only so many people in our community who deal schmugs, but you see the impact that it can have on the community just off this minute number of us. So that's a weak argument to say, oh, it's only 5% of African tribes believed in it, all that kind of stuff. That's silly and trying to deflect. But like I said, I don't believe that. I say it's about 60-40 because you're not gonna convince me, like I told the girl, that a bunch of YT men in wigs showed up there and and just was stealing people. They just having their way on a land that they do not know, you know, navigating that terrain. Y'all, I'm not gonna give them YT people that much credit. They not that crafty, they not that smart, especially back then. They just coming out of plagues and stuff like that. They were just getting wiped out by because they couldn't wipe their butts and all that kind of stuff. Man, you're not gonna convince me that they did what they did without the help of, a big number of African tribes in on it. So, like I said, I say it's about 60-40 in my opinion, because you can't have one without the other. The dealer needs the plug needs the dealer. And I land.
okay, do anybody have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I definitely got a rebuttal to that.
Revenue? Okay, go ahead, Revenue.
Yeah. So anybody could look up. It's 5,000 African tribes, and nearly 1% of them was involved in the transatlantic slave trade. The real people that controlled, operated, and started the slave trade is the small hats. But I've noticed that FBAs are scared of the small hats. They talk about hip hop and how people try to undermine them, but it's the small hats that own hip hop. It was the Lancado small hats that participated and structured the transatlantic slave trade in West Africa. When the Portuguese got to West Africa, they was defeated by the Jollof Empire. The Jollof Empire chased out the Portuguese out of West Africa when they tried to kidnap Africans. The Lancado small hats came into West Africa, intermarried with different tribes, and they started the transatlantic slave trade. So for people to blame Africans like they was building ships, that like they built slave castles is just uh, you know, hindering and sucking off the white man's nipple, as usually that FBA do. They have no smoke for the small hats who operated. The largest slave owner in American history is Aaron Lopez out of Newport, Massachusetts. But I don't hear FBAs talking about the small hats and how they profited off the slave trade. I don't hear FBA talking about how the small hats created the NAACP to undermine them. I don't hear FBAs talking about the small hats, how they undermined them during the civil rights, and they benefited the most because now they're considered white and a minority group, so they're double, triple dipping. I don't hear FBAs talking about how the small hats control the music industry, Hollywood, and how they're depicted and what they want heard across the airwaves. But I noticed now one of these FBAs brought up the small hats and how they controlled, dominated the sugarcane, molasses, rum trade, or any of the or any of the economic sectors of the slave trade. And I'll land there.
Okay. Anybody have what's that? Oh no. Go ahead, Sensei. Final say.
You see how he went and tried to drag somebody else into it, tried to shift the blame on somebody else. Regardless, I said it's 60-40. I believe small hats and YT, man, them the same folks. They look just alike to me. So I don't differentiate between them two groups of people. They all the same to me. They
The
all
small hands is a religion turned into
that's what
kind of like a racial situation, Sensei. So I agree with you.
that's what I'm saying. They all
ATP,
man. They
ATP, this is not a debate. You can't be coming off your microphone with somebody's rebuttal. You got to stay on your microphone in order for this thing to work.
Sorry, helicopter.
like I said, man, in my like she said, man, that's a religious thing, man. They all YT people to me. They all look the same. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference if they were standing next to each other. I say it's 60-40. He tried to throw it off there. I said most of the blame is on them. 60 on them, 40 on, the African tribes that was involved with it because again, tell me a plug who's successful without a dealer. If you can find me one, man, let me know. If you can find me a plug who does business without a dealer, man, just let me know that. They were in hand. They was in business together. They going. It takes two to tango. What they say, man. They was tangoing together and they made it happen. And that's just the end of that. I'm done.
Okay, Sensei, you ready for your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Why were certain regions more dependent on slave labor than others? Wait a minute. Why were certain regions more dependent on slave labor than others?
I think money, money value, like money. When you're trying to get something going, you need, there were some regions that might have had better, infrastructure, already had things going, and then there were some regions where there was nothing. So you need, a cheap labor to come in, get things going, and for the startup. So I believe it was just cheap. It's who don't want cheap labor when you go into a land that you're trying to build up, and other regions might have been already up and running. So yeah, that's it on that.
Okay, Sensei. Hey, Helicopter, welcome back. Thank you for helping me out with the stage too.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, you want to address the prompt?
Yeah, who's responsible for the slave trade? Well, I'm gonna go ahead and paint a timeline. I've already told you who I believe is responsible. It's the Africans, right? So I'm gonna start off by saying this: by the late 1400s, all right, there were four tribes: the Dahomey, the Oyo, the Ashanti, and the Congo. Those four tribes controlled 60% of the slave captives that were already being placed into the slave trade that was already occurring in Africa. Okay. And their largest purchaser at that time was Ethiopia. All right. Now, the European came on the scene in the late 1400s. The Portuguese specifically showed up in Africa. They built a gold trading post in 1488. All right. When they built that gold trading post at that time, they had zero interest in slave captives. They wanted gold and they wanted other specific textiles, right? In exchange for the gold and the other textiles, they were giving these four kingdoms the pew pew. All right, because Arabians weren't providing them with the pew pew because they didn't trust them like that. All right. So when these Dahomey, Oyo, Ashanti, and Congo tribes got access to the pew pew, right, they started going about each other even more for more control of captives from Africa. They were raiding the little tribes that they were controlling in Africa at the time. By 1550, there was a mutually beneficial exchange of the pew pew and the slave captive between the African and the European because the European had discovered sugar in Brazil and the Caribbean, and it required a massive amount of labor. Okay. By the late 1500s, Elmira Castle had been completely converted over to a slave castle, and the African was the main supplier of slaves to the European for the daggone sugar plantations in Brazil and in the Caribbean. And in 1793, the cotton gin was invented, transatlantic slave trade ended, and the slave trade in Africa collapsed. The Africans resorted back into the dark ages to where they exist right now. The European kept going with the cotton trade and everything ended. And on that, I'll land my plane.
I respond to that.
I would like to rebut as well.
Revenue, that touched your soul, huh?
Yeah, because he
You
just
sounded
got
like
up.
another person.
He just got up here and lied about every single thing that came out his mouth.
Okay, revenue and then ATB.
The
Go
Dahomey
ahead.
Kingdom didn't even exist in the 1400s. The Ashanti Kingdom didn't even exist in the 1400s. This dude is just a liar. And like I said, FBAs, they will never mention the small hats involvement in the slave trade because they're scared of the small hats. Not one of these people mentioned the small hats, and those are the people that set up the posts and intermarry into these African tribes and created these conflicts. Look it up. The Lancados. I hope when I get my time, I could post my facts on the screen in front of everybody because I don't want to debate FBA. It seemed like a lot of these FBAs got a European white supremacist propaganda they're trying to promote and blame it on Africans. This dude said that the Dahomey Kingdom exists in the 1400s. Everybody got a smartphone and could look up when did the Dahomey Kingdom came into fruition. The same with the Ashanti tribe. The Ashanti tribe didn't even exist until the 1700s. So I don't know what this dude helicopter is talking about. He won't mention the Lancados. He won't mention the small hats profiting off the slave trade on both ends and creating the infrastructure of the slave trade. He won't mention them, but he won't mention that Africans was involved. 1% of African tribes out of 5,000 was involved in the slave trade. Look it up. Don't believe nothing that come out of my mouth. Look it up. 1% of African tribes was involved in the slave trade. But he won't mention how the small hats dominated. He didn't even bring them up. But he's talking about he's giving a chronological order of how the slave trade happened. He don't even know when these tribes came into fruition, when these kingdoms came about. But he think he gonna lecture people on the slave trade. I don't know. A lot of you FBAs, I could tell y'all dropped out of school. Y'all ate crayons when y'all was little and probably wore a helmet to school because you clearly don't know about the slave trade. I land there.
Thank you, helicopter. Final say.
All right. Yeah, I may have misquoted the timelines of the kingdoms that exist, but you know what? I did the exact same thing that most of these tethers do. They go over to a whole nother country and try to tell everybody about the history of them people that they had nothing to do with. So I'm going to sit here in a whole nother country and I'm going to tell the history about them people that I ain't got nothing to do with. Bottom line is they was Africans. Don't matter if they was called damn Ashanti or Yowo or Romo or Dobo, goddamn. I don't give a damn if they was called Spanish, Mexican, Julio, goddamn, whatever the case may be. They still was African and they still was trading each other. And notice, he ain't dispute that 1550 claim. He ain't dispute the damn original purpose of the Elmira Castle. He ain't dispute when the Elmira Castle got converted over. He ain't dispute that there was a massive slave trade going on within the continent of Africa. He ain't dispute none of that. All he disputed was the small hats, the pew-pew small hats controlled slave trade. Well, god dang it, last I checked, small hats didn't really come into power until 1948 when the daggone YT man moved their ass out of goddamn Poland after WW2 and goddamn set them up a little establishment right there in the Middle East. At that time, the people that went into Africa was Catholics. Like last I checked, wasn't they Catholics? No, last time I checked, right? But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead on and land my plane because he didn't address anything I said.
Can I do a rebuke?
No,
No,
ma'am. It's not
no,
appropriate.
it's only the
I
first
wanted you
two
to do.
simply. I know AT. It's only the first two simply. I mean, we did that one time, but normally it's only the first two. But you can. I'll allow it simply after AT. Go ahead, AT.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna be quick. Helicopter didn't say nothing wrong. Maybe okay, out of timeline, but he was still right on money. The homie, which was initially Benin, honestly, we can start to put the timeline together if that's what the conversation is about. And I
Wait
agree
a
with
minute.
what.
Hold on,
Yeah,
ATP. Do you have a rebuttal? You have a
yeah, my
rebuttal for
rebuttal is
him?
to revenue.
Oh no, it's helicopter turn.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. My rebuttal is to confirm what he was saying.
Girl. All
Don't
right,
get
I'm
mad.
about to. Okay.
No, no. So because I just felt like it was wrong the way revenue came at him because he was still on the money because slavery was slavery in the kingdoms when it happened. The time periods we can argue the time periods,
Okay,
but to
well, you
keep track.
next. You next. Say that for your turn. You after
Okay, all right,
helicopter.
I save it. But helicopter, good job. All right, bye.
Okay, simply go ahead.
Okay, helicopter, come on, Africa is not in a dark age. We are not in a dark age. Okay, we have evolved quite a lot. We're not in a dark age. And talking about, mentioned the Congo, the Kingdom Congo at the time, we had king and queens that fought the Portuguese to death so that they would not take the people. They fought to death. So
Hey,
yes,
say
you are.
underline. Say under. They fought
Oh,
to underline or
they, they,
something.
they
Okay.
fought, they fought, they fought so that people would not be taken. And yes, I do know and acknowledge then they couldn't do what they did without help from the continent. Yes, but it was not everybody, and you had kingdom that fought. And Congo was one of them. For example, Queen Nzinga, that woman fought for her people. So it was not everybody. This is all I wanted to say. But you were right in certain things that you say. The date, not so much, but certain things you say were right. It's just the two things that I wanted to tell, then I wanted to rebuke. That's it.
All right. Thank you, simply helicopter. Final say.
All right. Here's the problem with the two things that you said. I want everybody to Google a map of electricity in Africa in 2026. And I want you guys to take a look at how much of the continent of Africa is actually in the dark right now in 2026. It's like 95% of the continent is in the dark right now. I would consider that the dark ages, right? The second thing is, there's about 50 to 60% of the continent of Africa right now that practices open defecation, right? That's something that they did in the European dark ages. The European was known for that, right? And the third thing that you said is that you guys fought to the unalive. That is, that may be correct, right? But here's the problem with that. The Europeans wrote stuff down. The African didn't. So there's no way to verify what you said. And I'm gonna land my plane.
Okay, you ready? Let me get your question together. Helicopter. What role did banks and corporations play in slavery?
All right. In the transatlantic slave trade, the banks and the corporations probably played a massive role in Europe, but they had zero role in here in America because the transatlantic slave trade had zero to do with the actual trade of cotton here in America. And you guys can look that up. But a lot of the banks, they did grow in numbers as far as wealth in Europe. And a lot of those banks ended up financing the slave traders in America when they started the cotton slave trade after the invention of the cotton gin in 1793. So by the early 1800s, when the cotton slave trade began in America, the African slave trade was completely over and no Africans were being traded, right? So the Europeans that came over here, they were financed by the banks and the insurance companies in Europe, and they were allowed to get that money and buy whatever they needed to buy. They were allowed to buy the property. They were allowed to buy more pew-pews from Europe. They were allowed to buy materials and everything else that they needed to enslave the population. And they also were able to buy the stuff that they needed to raid Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, and add those guys into the actual slave trade that became the second Middle Passage, which happened in America. So overall, I think the European bankers ended up starting a lot of the slave trade for the transatlantic as far as supplying the money and everything. But I think they played a massive role in financing the slave traders here in America.
All right, thank you, Helicopter. ATP, you want to address the prompt?
Okay, yes. So the prompt: who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? Africa is heavily responsible, and then Europeans definitely are responsible for shipping the commodity of product of human beings. So I would say 60% African kingdoms, and then 40% here in the coming from the 18. No, I guess we can say from the 16th century on until up into the 19th century, were the Europeans who were definitely responsible for that other 40%. So, yep.
Lover, can I respond?
I still got a whole minute and 11 seconds, 10 seconds to go.
Yeah, you want to use it? I got kind of cold. I had to go get my sweaty.
Yeah, I guess I could just use it up. So, I also wanted to mention too, because this wasn't mentioned earlier, that in the topic that, you got to remember the Europeans stayed mainly on the coast, right? So they couldn't really come into the interior of Africa. So, matter of fact, they quoted Africa as being the white man's the Africa as being the white man's graveyard or something like that. So there is records of them being on the coast. So people had to interact with, like I said, with kingdoms along the coast in order for them to get the commodities or products of human trafficking that they did, because the system within the continent was already set up. And shout out to, yes, Queen Nzinga, but that was one kingdom that we can point to. If you can point to some others, please name them. But you got to remember, I think it's important for us to understand context to timelines. Okay.
Can I respond?
Yes, does anyone have any rebuttals for AT?
Yeah, I do.
All right, go ahead, Revenue.
Yeah, you see, as you can notice, no FBA want to mention the small hats and their involvement. This brother before me and HUD won't bring up that Lehman Brothers is a small hat bank. JP Morgan is a small hat bank. Barclays is a small hat bank. And these are some of the Bank of America, a small hat bank. These are the banks that was financing loans, insurance companies, all owned by the small hats, all designed by the small hats. But not one of these FBAs want to mention the small hats and their involvement in the slave trade. Those are the people that profited the most off the slave trade. It wasn't the Europeans. It wasn't the Africans. It was the small hats. but not one of these FBAs want to mention the small hats. They are scared to death of the small hats. I just realized that they won't mention the small hats when it come to hip hop. They won't mention the small hats when it comes to the civil rights, but they always want to blame the African. 1% of Africans was involved in the slave trade. Now it's just Africans that sold slaves. But they won't mention who profited, who transported their ancestors from the west coast of Africa. No Africans built no ships to transport no other Africans across the Atlantic. No Africans built the Elmina Castle or any of these slave dungeons in West Africa. It was the small hats and the Europeans. And we're not gonna say the small hats are Europeans or white, because they don't consider themselves white or European. They say they come from the Middle East. So I don't know why now you don't want to be tied up and say you're African. You always say delineate us, but the small has been the first people to delineate from white people, but yet you don't want to mention them. They don't want to say nothing about the small hats and their involvement. It's mind-boggling that you would blame Africans who was only 1% involvement of the slave trade, but you don't want to mention the people that own the banks, the insurance companies that financed and gave loans to these monarchs to ship your ancestors across the Atlantic, and who dominated the sugarcane, molasses, rum trade. The largest slave owner in American history was a small hat named Aaron Lopez, but they won't mention
Hey,
none of
man,
them.
your plane
Thank
revenue.
you. I'll land there.
I got a rebuttal.
My
Oh,
rebuttal. Okay,
yeah.
so my
It's who you got to rebut? It's
it was
AT.
revenue. He was rebutting me.
Yeah,
So
you got the rebuttal for AT helicopter.
No, for a helicopter. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought it was revenue turn. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay, I
oh
got
no, it
you.
was my turn. Okay, so I'm learning love. I'm trying to learn the platform. Sorry. Um, So my rebuttal is, again, revenue keeps going off topic. The topic is, well, the question was, who's really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade? Which time periods are relevant in that context, right? And that domestically, JP Morgan Chase and all those things those things to me came later. And it is very, very sad because he keeps coming back to America when we're talking about the two countries, which is Africa and Europe. And at the end of the day, no one's saying that Europe did not have a responsibility. Portuguese, none of those people had a responsibility. We're saying that to put context to what we're understanding now is that Africa had a system that they had themselves without intercontinental colonialism prior to Europeans coming over. And you keep running from that, thinking that we're supposed to hold on to this topic of the small hats, the small hats, the small hats. If that was the context of conversation, then we would all be on that. But that's not what we're on, because we're trying to stay on point and talk about what is really the beginning, the middle, and what has now gotten us to where we are today. For some reason, you want to talk about the small hats. That's your thing right now. But that is not on topic. It's off topic. And at the end of the day, it is well documented that Africans had intercontinental WARs. They held each other. They were doing different things, and then they were looking for people to supplement and help them win their WARs against each other. And that's what it is. 60-40. That's my number.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, AT, you ready for your question? Is it fair to hold well, let me repeat this and rephrase it. Is it fair to hold modern day taxpayers accountable for historical crimes?
Is it fair to hold modern day taxpayers?
Yes, accountable for historical crimes.
I would say it is, but it isn't. But you can't get around it the way the system is set up. Is that kind of? Should I elaborate? Okay, so elaboration is today, in today's time, we don't know the percentage of our tax dollars that goes to current day reparations that have been in place prior to us, even those of us who have been born in the 80s, going back to the 70s, etc. So we never really complained. However, when it comes to us now fighting for our repair and restitution, people have a problem with it, and I don't understand why. So I think that it's fair because it is a small percentage that will come from everybody, but also most of our repair is not going to come from taxpayers. It's going to come from the Federal Reserve. So I'll land there.
Is there anything else you got to say? You got a minute left.
No, I feel like I was talking too fast. So no.
Oh, okay now.
He can take the rest of my time if he wanted.
Helicopter. Did you want to say something to Revenue?
No, I'm addressing where he go because I already know he gonna say the
Okay.
exact same thing. So I'm gonna wait till the rebuttal him.
Okay. All right, Revenue.
Lover, would I be able to show my source on the screen?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, cause I just want to nail this to the coffin, so we could just put an end to this. So this is the early 1500s when the Portuguese invaded modern day Senegambia region. As you can see that the Portuguese was defeated when they first came into Africa. So no, the white man didn't show up and just started trading Africans. Africans beat them down and kicked them out of and chased them back to Europe, as you can see on the screen. Also, these are the early people who started hold up. Let me get it right. These are the early people that started the slave trade. These are the Lancados. These are small hat people that was kicked out of Portuguese, and they ended up in West Africa, and they started doing trade with African leaders and started intermarrying into their different tribes, and this is how they started creating confusion within those African regions and putting them against each other. So these are the early Portuguese who are small hats that was kicked out of Portugal, later sent to the New World, and who started the slave trade. They ended up in places like South America, Jamaica, Barbados, Newport, Rhode Island, and other northeast colonies in Americas. So they had an international trade going on between the small hats who financed, structured the slave trade. No, as you can see, nothing I put up so far, no Africans was involved. These are straight small
You
hat people dominating the trade. Not one
if you go back
African
one
set up. Bro, stay off your mic, bro. Not one African set up no colony in South America, Jamaica, or Newport, Rhode Island. As you can see, these are small hats setting up in the Americas and the Caribbean. Also, they like to talk about like they're the only ones that went through the slavery. Sugarcane contribute to the most of the economy and the wealth of Europeans. It wasn't no cotton. It was the sugarcane that
Hold
was
on,
oil.
Revenue. Did you address the prompt?
Yeah, I'm addressing the problem. I'm saying it's the small hats who are responsible for
Oh,
the slave
okay,
trade.
okay,
This
okay.
is directly responding to the prompt. And as you can see, only 1% of African tribe was involved in the slave trade, while the small hats dominated the banking system, the insurance companies, the trade. They loaned the monarchs in Europe the money for slave. So why no FBAs want to mention the small hats and how they dominated the trade? Not one of these FBAs is going to mention the small hats because they're scared of the small
Oh,
hats. They just only want to
Revenue.
punch down on Africans, and I land there.
Is that in your play? Because I'm sure you're going to have
I
a
got a
couple of
rebuttal.
rebuttals. Okay. Helicopter. Anybody else got a rebuttal?
I do, but
AC?
he's gonna have to
Okay,
bring that.
American.
Yeah, he's gonna have to bring that source back up because he overlooked the
Okay.
part where the Dutch Suriname had brokered between the enslaved Africans by the local chiefs, and so
You want to go first?
No, I need to
Yeah, let
either
him
for
go ahead and
revenue
go.
to
He
bring
already
that
No,
source
buzzing.
back up, or I have to
no, wait,
fish
wait, I
for it.
can't hear y'all. Hold on. What you say?
What I'm saying is that revenue had brought up a
I
source.
know you want me to put it back. I'm saying you want to,
I'd
you, do
like for
you?
him to bring that source back up because the bottom line is that he missed the part of where the Dutch Suriname they were brokering deals between the enslaved Africans by the local African chief warlords. He missed over that, and so I wanted him to bring that up, but I doubt he is. So I'm going to have to
Let's
fish
see.
for it.
Let's ask some revenue.
Yeah.
He was saying that he wanted you to bring that source back up, and what
Oh,
part
Dutch
of
Suriname.
The
America?
Dutch
That's what he.
Suriname,
Okay, I'll bring that up for
he's
you.
talking about Dutch Guinea or Dutch Guinea, which is going to be Suriname. If he brings that up, it literally states that
Show
they
me,
were
show me where
brokering.
African was involved in Dutch Suriname.
Yes,
Show,
it
put it on the
does.
big
But if you
screen.
bring it back up and start arguing with me,
Show me. It's right there.
On the link though. Why aren't you clicking
no,
on
go back through the second
Bro,
and
you
the.
said Dutch Suriname. This is the
See,
only.
he's not gonna bring
You
it back
said
up, and
Dutch
this is
Suriname. I
shitty.
brought it up for you.
No,
Dutch
I'm talking
Suriname is
about.
not in Africa. Suriname is in
Yeah, so South America. You
South
said
America.
Yeah,
bring up Dutch.
I know, but if you
Wait,
bring
wait,
it, see,
love
this
word.
is what
Did
I'm
he not
saying.
just say
No
bring
one's going
up
to
Dutch
be
Suriname?
ingenuine. They're disingenuous. When I spoke up and he said for me to come off your mute, that was the placard that he
You
used,
said
and
this
it
is the
literally
only source.
stated,
Let me go through it. Let me go through it. This is the
"This is
only.
shitty."
Is this the only source I brought up about
is
Dutch
that
Suriname?
No, it's
Wikipedia?
not.
Is that
You were scrolling
Wikipedia?
through.
Hold on, American Negro. Can you find the source and I'll put
Yeah,
your
it's going to
source
take
up
me a
there?
minute to find it. Here it
So
is.
see,
They brokered the
that's why I
exchange
don't
of
really
European
like.
goods for enslaved
I
Africans from
know, but
local
I'm saying
chiefs.
like if you going to debate
It's
his
right there.
source,
It's
you
that's
gotta.
this is the one. No, ma'am. This is the one I'm talking about. They brokered the exchange of
Oh, you
European
got it.
goods for enslaved Africans from local
Who's
chiefs.
denying that?
So my point is, wait.
Is
My
it on
point
there though,
is,
American? You see it?
yeah, I see it.
Oh, okay.
It's showing it, and so my point is that the Portuguese initially the Dutch, and then it was the
Bro, these
Portuguese.
are small
The Dutch.
hats. These are small hats.
No, it says they brokered
These are
read the
small
sentence,
Hey,
hats.
revenue.
brother.
He doing your rebuttal. Hold
Okay.
on. The
Read the
time started.
sentence. Read the
Go ahead,
sentence.
American.
Just read. It says they brokered the exchange of European goods for enslaved Africans from local chiefs. Do you know who the local chiefs are? Who are the local chiefs, Revenue? Let's all mute and give him some time.
That's not how a rebuttal works, bro. You got 2 minutes to state your claim, and then revenue gets the final say. It's not
Okay, so bottom line is that the man doesn't know what he's reading. He's confusing the middlemen or the brokerers between the chiefs that sold the Africans and the mercantile colonies. That's what he's confusing. He's just pulling stuff off of Wikipedia and he's just throwing shit in there. He doesn't know what he's reading. So again, when it says they brokered the exchange, they're saying that the small hats were the middlemen, and it is true. Dutch Guinea or Suriname ended up being a hybrid of colonies and mercantilism, but they got the labor from the local tribe chief warlords who enslaved the neighboring tribes over there in Africa. That's the point. That's the point that you're missing. Everyone else knows this but you. You keep on arguing that it's the small hat. It's not the small hat. Not only that, but I want to say this one last thing. Lehman Brothers and the rest came late. ATB is right. Lehman Brothers came late. They came around late 1700s, early 1800s. So that's way too late what we're talking about. We're talking about the 16th and 17th centuries, which is 1500 and 1600. That's what we're talking about. So you're way too late when you talk about stuff about Lehman Brothers. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm mute.
Yeah. So if
Revenue final say.
yeah, I guess this guy must have a small hat boss that he works for. So he came up here to cat for them. I said when the small hats got kicked out of Portugal, as you can see at the top, Lancado, Portuguese for thrown out or cast out. Everybody know that the small hats was kicked out of Portugal and Spain in the 15th century. It don't take a scholar that teach at a university to know that the small hats got kicked out of Europe in the 15th century and went into West Africa, and they intermarried with local chieftains in West Africa and started the trade. I don't know why he came up here capping for the small hats. Yes, they did was they the brokers for the Europeans and the Africans? Yes, because they intermarried. Anybody could look up Luso Africans. These are mulatto Africans with small hat fathers, with African mothers, and they use them as basically a buffer class. The Lancados was the controllers of the trade. I, I don't know why this dude came up here to cap for the small hats, but if you notice, these FBAs will not mention the small hats involvement in the trade. They only want to protect them. For some strange reason, they want to attack the Africans, but they don't want to mention the people that profited off the slave trade. They Everybody want to say, oh, Lehman Brothers came after. Where you think they got the money from? They got the money from trading. Lehman Brothers, JP Morgan, these are small hat banks. Barclays, these are small hat banks. I don't want to hear they're white. All of a sudden, you don't want to delineate Jews from whites, but you want to delineate yourself from Africans. That don't make no sense. I don't know. I land there.
Okay, ATP.
Okay, now I understand the orange analogy. Somebody grew the oranges. Someone grew the oranges. And the chiefs were the ones growing the oranges. And crazy part is that you're stuck on this 15th and 16th century in documentation. And again, you said you don't have to be a historian or whatever you said, to know information, but you got to do research for historical references, and you have Google in front of you, but you choose Wikipedia. The problem is that Africa was around prior to the 15th and 16th century, even going back to the 9th century, 12th century, and they had already had I'm gonna say it again for you, since you like to call people names. Stop being slow, please. I think you're being disingenuous on purpose because you want people to be stuck in only one period of time so that you can feel like we're just on here attacking Africans in a context to conversation. We're not. That's not what's happening. Pulling information up means you actually have to go into the links that you pull up and read through the articles, read through the documentation, grasp it, get a concept of what's happening in perspective. You're not doing that. Wikipedia is not a real source. Okay? It's just not. Stop it.
Revenue final say.
Yeah. Like I said, a lot of you FBAs, I peeped that a lot of y'all didn't go to school. Y'all very uneducated.
That's not fair because I'm not attacking your
Yes,
education.
you did. Yes, you did. You said I was slow. You said I was slow.
I said stop being slow.
You said I was slow. Okay, I'm responding. Why are you
slow.
taking up my
Don't-
time?
ATP, this is not a
Why you
back and
taking my
forth debate.
time?
Let him land his plane.
Just took up all of my
Hold on,
time.
ATP, we're gonna just move you down, sis. Cause, I think you just probably, I know you real passionate about it. And I understand, you know what I mean? Some people can't, sit and have a debate and actually listen to other people who really they disagree with. I understand. You want to give it another go, ATP, or
I'm
you
sorry,
think?
because that wasn't my intentions. But I just felt like your lives are always respectable, and nobody has, called anybody names. But it seems like the people who have been calling people names have been the others.
Wait, you
from
literally
other
just called me
backgrounds.
slow. You just called me slow.
So I think that is why I feel triggered, and I literally am hyped because I think that it's improper to have a debate, and every time you talk about somebody, you're literally personally making it personal without bringing up facts. And then when he's debunked in his facts, he starts calling people names like the little 8th grader did when she was up here.
Yeah, but I'm trying to tell you, it's both sides. I know it might seem like that tonight, but I've heard I've heard all groups give each other the smoke. But somebody gonna get their lick back for you. You ain't gotta jump out there. He can say what he want to say. Just hold it in, and then don't worry about it.
I'll work on it. I definitely will work on it and be better.
Yeah, it takes patience. It took me years to be able to listen to all this without going crazy in the head. I mean crazy, like going off. So I get it. You know, I don't know what else to say. But I give everybody a voice, so you know. But okay, sis, go ahead, Revenue.
Yeah, she called me slow, and now she complaining. They get up here and say Africans. They say the most derogatory things about Africans, but then cry victim when people respond. It's like y'all act like small hats. Y'all want a monopoly on black. Y'all want a monopoly on the slave trade. Y'all think y'all the only people that went through slavery. It's crazy. Like I said, FBA's they don't want to mention the small hats and their involvement in the slave trade, but they want to keep bringing up Africans all the time. They don't want to mention the people that profited off the slave trade and started Hollywood and started the music business, but they want to turn their attention to Africans who was warring with each other. I'm not negating the fact that Africans war with each other and they sold Africans other Africans into slavery. I'm not negating that. I'm pointing out who was the people behind the tribalism. No different than the CIA planting rugs in communities. Nobody's gonna say that Free Ray Ricky Ross just founded you know, crack and made about all by itself. He was taught how to cook it. He was taught how to buy it. He didn't learn this on his own. And people won't negate that. They'll say, yeah, it's not us. It's the CIA that did that. But they won't negate the facts that it was the small hats who profited, who started the tribalism and profited off the slave trade. I think you know what I think? I think FBAs are scared of the small hats because they know they can't have a fight with them. They want to have fight with black immigrants and people they know they could punch down on because we are the minority. They want to punch down on Africans because they know their white daddy is gonna back them up if they attack Africans. But they won't attack the small hats who run their community, run their businesses in their community, run the music industry in their community. They only want to talk about how Tethers lie about creating hip hop. Tethers don't own Atlantic. Tethers didn't own Lehman Brothers or Barclays. It was the small hat community. And I land there.
So, Revenue, you feel like the Black American community / FBA is punching down on immigrants.
Yeah, I
The
think
immigrant community is hurting right now.
I think FBAs in general are scared of the small hat community, but they have no
No, my
problem.
question is, you feel like, well, you part of the immigrant community. Is that what y'all saying? Y'all saying that y'all feel hurt?
I can't speak
We
for
punching down. You feel hurt?
Yeah, for after all we did and built for this black culture here in America, finding cities, creating lift every voice and sing, creating the first newspaper, foundational to the Harlem Renaissance, civil rights, and created hip hop. Yeah, we're hurt. All we did to contribute to the Black American culture. Yeah, we don't own the record labels. We just started hip hop, but we won't get the credit for that. They want to say we undermine them, but they won't talk about the small hats who run Atlantic, run all these industries. They won't complain about Hollywood and how they're depicted by the small hats, but they want to cry about
Okay.
memes they see on TikTok.
Okay.
Ain't nobody making no millions off memes, but the
Okay.
small hats making billions off Hollywood.
All right, Revenue. Was that helicopter you had the final rebut?
Yeah, it's on me.
Okay.
All right, he has said two things. We already know the one thing he been complaining about, but I'm gonna get the other thing out of the way first, right? The first thing he said when he came on the microphone, he said, "Yo, so in the 1500s, the Portuguese was being unalived by the Africans." Portuguese built that castle in what's that 1788? 1488. So what happened between 1488 and the 1500s? That's like 60 something years, right? So I'm gonna get that out of the way. Now let's talk about the small hats, right? Always want to talk about how FBA's don't want to say nothing. Y'all scared of the small hats, blah blah blah. I bet you ain't gonna say nothing to that small hat that you got your bank account in. I bet you won't say nothing to that small hat that got your car loan that you own that make that payment to every month. Bet you won't say nothing to that small hat that own that apartment that you renting right now. Bet you won't say nothing to the small hat that own the daggone buses and the trains that you catch your ass around New York City in right now. But that ain't even why we came here, right? Let's talk about the small hat's involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. We're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, not the American slave trade for the cotton, okay? Now, they used to say you want to keep some information from a nigga, put it inside of a book. Now they say you want to keep some information from a stupid ass Pan-African or a tether, put that shit in a book, right? The way they got this this small hat involvement in the trade hate from this book. And this book is called The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Small Hats. I want y'all to look that up. That book has been debunked about 11 times, right? But when you come on here and you don't read the book, then of course you're going to quote some shit and look like a damn fool. Right. So now let's talk about the actual involvement of the transatlantic slave trade. There were actually 5 countries that were involved in the transatlantic slave trade. There were Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, and the Netherlands. Okay. And in order to participate in that transatlantic slave trade, they had to have a charter. It was the Africa Charter. And I forget what the name of the other charter was, but there were 2 specific charters that you had to sign on to in order to participate in that slave trade. And the small hats had absolutely zero to do with those charters. You know what the small hats did? The small hats came along in 1844 and they made their money off of the cotton trade, specifically the Lehman Brothers that you brought up. And I'm going to land my plane.
Can I just read something, Love World?
It's your final say.
Yeah. So what I got on my screen right now is the largest slave owner in American history. His name is Aaron Lopez. He was a Sephardic small hat. Look, I'm going to read it right here. Aaron Lopez was a prominent Sephardic merchant in colonial America, recognized as the wealthiest resident of Newport, Rhode Island by the 1770. He said 1800. This is 1770. Born Duarte Lopez in Portugal, he was raised as a crypto small hat converso to avoid persecution before moving to Newport, converting openly to Judaism, and played a vital, not a small, not a little, a vital role in developing the Jewish community, including Toro Synagogue. So this man right here, a small hat, was the wealthiest slave trader in American history, and he arrived here in the 1700s. I don't know where you coming from trying to minimize these people. I guess you didn't read Dr. Tony Martin book, and I hear you trying to criticize the Nation of Islam and what they put forth. I don't understand how these FBAs gotta be paid by the small hat community and by white supremacists, because all they want to do is cape for white supremacists and small hats now and their involvement in the slave trade. This man just lied about what the Nation of Islam put forth. He don't know anything what happened to Leonard Jeffries and how he got chased out of City College by the small hats here in New York City. He don't know anything about Dr. Tony Martin, how he got chased out of New York City for put forth how their involvement in this trade and wanted and demanded reparations from these people. But yet he want to say the book that got debunked. How crazy you got to be as a black man in America to cape for the people that sold your ancestors and made them pick cotton and distill rum here in America. That's ludicrous, shameful, and embarrassing.
All right, thank you. Hey, what is it? Carl
It's me.
B.
Yep.
Hey,
Carlton.
Carl.
How are you?
Oh, Carlton. Why I say Carl? It say Carl B
I
though, right?
changed it. I changed it
Oh, okay. I
recently. I
thought it
can't
was
change it
Carl.
back. You can only change
No.
it every 30 days.
Okay, yeah, no. Every time I look at the profile, I'm like, I thought that was Carlton. I'm like, it looked like
Yeah.
him though, but it
Yeah,
is you. Okay.
it's me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this.
No, I appreciate your panels as always.
Thank you.
No, I just wanted to kind of just look at I
Oh,
want to
just
address the
one
Trump.
moment. Hold on. Hold on, Carl, please. ATP, thank you for joining. I'm going to rotate the stage. Thank you
So
for
thanks for
coming
having
up.
me. Have a good
You're
night, everybody.
welcome.
I'll be in the comments.
All right, thank you, sis.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah. Just addressing the prompt. I think it's important that we look at all of these players in context based on the time. So in the 1500s, the people that were commissioning these trips, they were the Jesuits, they were the Catholics, and the Sephardic Jews worked with them, but they were more closer to the middle of the supply chain at that time. And also in that time, the Sephardic Jews were still black. So we kind of need to like back ourselves into how this was actually built at the time. So you have the people that built the ships, the insurance companies, the banks, the buyers and the sellers, the middlemen, the slave trappers, the people that actually housed slaves that were in transit or had already been paid for, and the people that received them and actually sold them at auction on the other side of the ocean. This is a multicultural, multinational effort that was heavily documented. One bank in particular, Lloyd's of London. That's not a bank. It's actually one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. It's a Catholic institution. Um, that's where they built their that's where they built their first wealth. It was insuring slave ships as they went across the ocean. So I think we need to understand the power of the Vatican, the power of the popes at the time, and the fact that all of those European kingdoms were in service of the Pope during that time. You get the Jews, or you get the small hats later. Uh, you get the wealth of the small hats later, but that initial push was the Catholics with the Sephardic Jews as their front men.
Can I respond to that?
Yep, hold on, Revenue. Hi everyone. Can y'all please tap the screen? I'm still trying to get to my 100K taps per usual every night, but I don't mind y'all commenting. I see the comments, but can y'all tap too? While y'all comment, comment, tap a little, comment, tap a little for me. I'm trying to get to my rewards points. Okay, so thank y'all so much. Anybody got any rebuttals for Carl? Thank you.
Yeah, I had a rebuttal.
Okay, go ahead, Revenue.
Yeah, I don't know what this guy's smoking. He probably need to lay off it for some time. Because he said the small hats was originally black. I guess black people wrote about the curse of Ham. I guess black people wrote that having black skin is a curse, according to him. Essentially, they came out of Europe, they was black, and they just said poof, and just turned white all of a sudden. That's what he wanted us to believe, that the small hats left Portugal and Spain and went into West Africa and just said poof and turned to black. He said, and like I did, I just showed the Lancados was in West Africa in the 1500s. This was literally after they got the Spanish Inquisition. It wasn't the Portugal that went into West Africa for first. It was the Lancados. I just put it on the screen so everybody could see it. I don't know where you're getting your information from, as far as the Vatican controlling and all this nonsense, bro. Lay off the YouTube videos and read and start reading real history. Yeah, I just landed. I don't even need to respond to all that other nonsense. This dude just lied and said Jews is black. Like, come on. The black people wrote the Curse of Ham too? Because the Sephardic Jews are rabbinic Jews. They wasn't no Christian, Jesus loving fake Israelites like you trying to propose. They wasn't that. They was rabbinic rabbinic Jews that believed in the Talmud. I don't know any black people that believe in the Talmud. I'll land there.
I can answer that.
Yep, you got the final say, Carl.
Okay. The Semitic tribes were black. That's all we have to say. The Semitic tribes were black. At some point, they were destiny swapped, but the Semitic tribes were black. So what we're talking about when we talk about rabbinic Judaism, that is Zionism. Rabbinic Judaism is recent. That's probably within the last 70 years. And the phenomenon of Soviets becoming the face of Judaism, that's also new. Uh, what we're referring to when we talk about the historical context, especially the 15, 1600s, 1700s, we're still talking about black Sephardic Jews. We're still talking about black explorers, Christopher Columbus. We're talking about like people um, who had no other identity but having dark skin. That's who they actually are. The new people that we refer to as the small hats, especially the rabbinic Judaism followers, they are absolutely they're a recent phenomenon. They're almost as recent as of Israel itself, the corporation of Israel. They actually were the ones that really pushed for the foundation of uh, modern day Israel, uh, but Israel, like as a culture, as a heritage, the Semitic Jews from Israel, like the tribes of Israel, those are black people. So that's how we can fit them into context without tripping over ourselves. The destiny swapping has really done a number on our understanding of who those people were.
Okay, thank you. You ready for your question? Before I do that, we're going to just continue with the people on the stage. Then I'm going to wrap it up for tonight, but I will be back on early tomorrow and we'll pick it up from, from here, wherever, whoever come back tomorrow. You ready for your question, Carl?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. How did slavery influence modern capitalism?
Oh man, slavery is probably the purest form of modern capitalism. It's profit at all costs, or it's cutting the costs of the labor all the way down by overworking it until it dies literally. So if we're using like Caribbean slavery as the example, it's working someone to death. So you're getting all of the effort from that person um, until there's nothing left, and then you're starting over, right? That's what I think the strongest and most destructive version of capitalism was. So yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think about it. Today's labor force is influenced by it because they literally had to put laws in place. That's what the emergence of the textile unions in the late 1800s that really came into play because the work environments were so detrimental that people would take home diseases from the mines, and they had children working, heavy duty hours. The 40-hour work week came from the labor unions, and that was really to curb um, some of people's like worst instincts when it came to getting as much as you can for as little as you can pay. So that's uh, that's American slavery or the transatlantic slave trade or chattel slavery's influence on the modern day workforce in capitalism at its purest. And I lay my plane. There we go. I never said that before.
Okay, thank you, Carlton. Nobody else had rebuttals for you, right? Oh no, that was your question. Hi, Naboo. Thank
Hi.
you, Carl.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
You're
Um,
welcome.
I would say that it's two faceted to answer the question who's responsible. I'm African and I hate when people like take away the complicity of African people, especially not the average African. I'm talking about the kings, the elites, the merchants that participated in the slave trade. Like without them, you would, I mean, if they would have resisted, because a lot of them did not, there was some kingdoms that did, then the slave trade would have not been possible. So I would blame about 60% on Africans and then 40% on Europeans for actually creating the demand. It's really that simple. If you look throughout African history, especially West African and Central African history, you would know that many of these kingdoms did participate. And Revenue, you had the source that said the like within the Senegambia, they resisted the Portuguese. Yeah, that is true. But that's not true for the whole entirety of West Africa. That's just a specific area within West Africa. And I think that's the most important part as well. When we talk about Africa, it's not a monolith. We had different kingdoms with different ethnic groups, and they all operated differently. You get, and then also, even within the same kingdom, right? You had different leaders. If a new leader comes in and they want to participate in the slave trade, they would. And there were some leaders within the same empire, for example, the empire that I'm from within Fujitora, that also overthrew the ruling dynasty at that time, right? To stop the slave trade. So it's a very complex and nuanced situation. You get, so if you want to, analyze things from a historical point of view, you have to talk about the different kingdoms. Because at that time, Africa was not united. The term Africa did not even really exist. People did not really, go by that. It was based off of where you were, which is your kingdom, and your ethnic group. And yeah, so yeah, that's all I have to say.
Can I respond to her?
Does anybody have any rebuttals?
Yeah, I wanted to respond.
You want to rebuttal?
Yeah.
Okay, Revenue. Go ahead.
Yeah, did Africans create the musket? Did Africans make the musket and did Africans make the gunpowder? No. So for you to get up here and put 60% of the blame on Africans, did Africans make the Almina castle? Did Africans make any of the slave castles on the coast of Africa? No. Did Africans build the ships that transported people across the Atlantic? No. Did Africans set up colonies in the Caribbeans, in the Americas? No. Did Africans create banking system and insurance companies? No. Did Africans make rum in Jamaica? Did Africans distill molasses and do all of that? Did Africans own the plantations in the Caribbeans and in the Americas? No. So for you to put 60% of the blame on Africans, that's just crazy. Africans didn't create any of the things I just named. Not one. I don't know if you're trying to cape up to FBAs thinking that they're gonna side with you. They're never gonna like Africans. So I don't know why you come up here to throw your own people under the bus and say 60% of the blame is on Africans. I don't know. I don't know what your agenda is. I don't know if you're if you're a tribalist. I don't know what you are, but you're not gonna put the 60% of the blame on Africans where Africans didn't manufacture no muskets or gunpowder or create no slave castles. Did Africans participate in the tribalism and war with each other? Yes, but that don't mean that they set up the infrastructure of the slave trade. They did not set up the infrastructure. They did not create the slave castles or the ships. Africans did not create ships to transport other Africans across the Atlantic. So I don't know what type of agenda you're trying to pull, but I don't know. I don't know where you're from, but I land there.
Am I allowed to rebut
Okay,
to?
yes, ma'am. You have the final say, Noble.
Okay, so I think it's very disingenuous when you say all these things, right? I said the reason why I put 60% of the blame was because the Africans had the agency to stop it. I hate when people take away people's agency. There were some kingdoms that absolutely stopped the slave trade. Like, you can look at the Sarete people. They resisted it. They resisted it. And they were one of the last people to actually be conquered by the French because they resisted the slave trade. It's really that simple. You can go and look through the history of West Africa, right? You had the agency to stop it. You did not have to participate. No one held a gun to you and told you to sell these people or go and raid the nearby, the next ethnic group to sell them. That's the thing. Stop neglecting African agency. We were not victims, right? We were not forced to do anything. We actually did it, right? And also, yes, the Europeans created the demand for it. Yes, I understand that. But at the end of the day, there's been three other slave trades that have happened on the African continent outside of the transatlantic slave trade. There might be a fifth one if we do not take accountability and learn from it. So yes, Africans were complicit. Some Africans, not all. Some Africans and some kingdoms were complicit in it. And we cannot take away their involvement because if they did not create the supply, right? If they stopped it, right? The whole thing would have stopped. It would have collapsed. Europeans were not that powerful at that time. That's the slave trade. Literally, the transatlantic slave trade has mass psychological impacts within Africa. I was reading an article that said a paper that said that the whole reason why polygamy was so much popular back, like if you go back two generations, was because of the transatlantic slave trade. So what are you talking about? Stop attacking people. I don't have any agenda. I don't hate anyone. I'm not a tribalist. It's really hard for a Senegalese person to be a tribalist. I know my history. I know my people. I'm just saying the truth. My truth, anyway, or what I feel like is the truth.
Okay, thank you for that, Noble. Noble, I have your question. You ready? Okay, how did slavery in the Americas differ from slavery in Africa and Europe?
So slavery within America was more so chattel based and was more so racialized. So that's one of the difference. So basically, you inherit the status of your mother. They had different laws depending on which European colony you were in, but for the most part, it was more so hereditary. So they created, and then within Africa, for the most part, it wasn't hereditary. And you could also gain your freedom, buy your freedom. And most of it was like, it was basically like indentured servitude, basically. And there was a time period, like they had time periods where you were enslaved. And you can also, after your enslavement was done, you can also be integrated into the society that you were currently enslaved in, or you can go back to your original, homeland, basically. And I think the only parts within Africa that I have researched that
No,
actually
no,
had.
no. We not. I'm sorry, bad boy. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to drop you down because we wrapping up. Thank you. No more people. Cause no more people. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
Noble.
from what I have researched, the only parts within Africa that had the same system of, slavery that was practiced in Europe was North Africa and Mauritania, which is a West African nation, which still continues to have slavery till this day. And it's similar to the slavery that was going on in the Western world where it was hereditary. So, yeah. But for the most part, the system that Africans had was completely different than what the Europeans created.
Thank you, Nobu. Okay, everyone. We have a couple of more people left, and just to let y'all know, we have tons of questions. We're not nowhere near through with this. So tomorrow, I will be coming back on, and we will be picking up the same discussion for those who didn't get a chance to speak tonight. All right, go ahead, Chris.
Can you put me on the board, please?
Thank you for that
Is all
cloud,
right.
whatever that is. You're welcome, Chris.
You heard me? Can you put me on the board like the big screen? Yeah. See right here, everybody is. This is Amina Castle. It's like a cartoon of it. Me and Grok came up with. As you can see, it has cannons right there, right, pointing towards the water. Now, from what revenue says, that they weren't complicit because we're asking who's complicit for the slave trade, right? I would say that it's 75-25. 75 on the Africans, 25 on the Europeans. Simply because, let me ask you a question. Who did the YT man create the tree of forgetfulness? Did the YT man create the door of no return? See, these are questions that we have to ask because when you say that, you have to put this in context. Because I don't believe the YT man created those particular things, right? So you were asking about particular kings. So I'm gonna give you a receipt. His name is British Naval Officer Frederick Forbes. He went to Africa to speak to one of the kings. The king's name is King Jizu. He went to speak to him, and he's the king of the Dahomey tribe, which is President Dave Benin. And he went speaking to him, asking him to stop selling slaves. And you know what he told him? That's my economy. I don't want to sell coconut butter. I don't want to sell palm oil. I want to sell people. That's what pretty much he said. So for you saying that, right? That was obviously not true. And there was this other thing that you said, right? You was talking about this particular person called Dr. Tony Martin. Now, Dr. Tony Martin probably wouldn't have had to run had he not been sold by the Africans over here to America that have to go through civil rights bills and all of those particular things had he not got sold. I don't know. Maybe you could tell me. If we didn't ever get sold, we never had to even go through none of this stuff before. So just as having to go through that is off of us being sold, which is well documented. And I will land there.
Okay, Chris. Anybody have any rebuttals? I like that prompt,
I
Chris.
definitely got a rebuttal to that.
I have a
Yeah, I got one
rebuttal
as
as
well.
well, but
Okay.
Reverend, you can get it first, man.
I got
Okay.
one as well.
This dude brought up the Amina Castle. It's called a castle. Africans don't build castle. Europeans build castle. And on top of the Elmina Castle is a church. Those Africans that was in West Africa was not Christians at the time. They was converted into Christianity later after slavery ended during colonization after 1880. So Africans built a castle and built a church that they didn't even believe in Jesus Christ. They was Ashanti Kingdom was not Christians. The Dahomey was not Christians. So I don't know what was the point of bringing up Almina Castle. Like Africans built it and built a church on top of it, and had access to a Bible. These people just bring up a load of nonsense. And like I said, you said 75% is Africans' fault. Africans didn't see. You notice he took down the castle. Africans don't build castles. Europeans build castles. Africans wasn't converting people to Christianity at that time. It was Europeans. That's why it's a church on top of it. So for you to bring up the Almina Castle and bring up, oh, look where the cannon was pointing to. You know it's crazy? In the Caribbean islands and even in Americas, well, y'all used to celebrate. We have a celebration called Jonkanu. Jonkanu is a West African slave that was brought to Jamaica, and he was a leader that was he was a Ashanti man that was warring with Europeans, and we celebrate him during carnival that we call Boxing Week. So we know the people who was fighting against the slave trade. We got this documented in the Caribbean. It was celebrated in North Carolina and different places on the East Coast. So to say that Africans was totally involved, you're just, I don't want to call you dumb, but you obviously probably ate
Okay.
crayons and I land
Ready?
there.
Land your glue. I mean, land your plane.
Yeah, you know he ate glue.
Actually,
No,
revenue.
that's normally
Revenue.
what you
No,
say
what
to
it was?
glue.
Thank you,
Revenue.
lover.
You know what happened?
No.
Revenue.
Go ahead, Chris.
Revenue, them Africans that you're protecting, they sold our people for markers and crayons. You know, that's what happened. That was the historical thing. Now, the other thing that, because you seem to be well virtued in history, right? So there was these particular books I was reading in college where they said that the people of Portugal got sick while they were building that Almina Castle, and that they could no longer build it because they were sick. So a lot of the ships just stayed out there in the water because they were so sick in Africa. So a lot of the Africans built most of that stuff up. I'm pretty sure that you probably know that, right? Because that's why I set you up. See, you got to know when you're debating people, when you come on these panels, sometimes you just throw a little debate out there for people. That was a little jab and you fell for it. Now you uppercut and now you about to be on the mat like A.A. Tether was earlier on my panel. You about to be on the mat now because you fell for that. Yeah, it was the Africans who built that. It was the Africans who brought them there. So you're saying that the YT man walked into the jungles and he just went there and he just found Negroes? Sir, stop the cap. You know better than that. You know that that wasn't what happened. You know that they were selling out their own people. Now, again, you seem to not have wanting to touch the subject of British naval officer Frederick Forbes, who said that this African king of the Dahomey tribe, he was selling slaves so much to the point that he said that he could not see himself not selling slaves. And that's not only the tribe. Also, I'll give you another tribe of Caroline Wanga, right? You know, who used to be of Essence, the one you talk about hip hop all the time. So I know you being a hip hop head, you'll know about this. So, you know, her family, right, the Wanga tribe in Kenya sold slaves too. So, when you get ready to, you know, do your spiel, can you please touch on that? And I also will give you the tribes, right? The Jola tribe, the Baga tribe, and the Masi tribe were tribes that kingdoms, sorry, not tribes, kingdoms that fought against that. They did. But ultimately, all of them agreed, and they've been doing it long before the YT man showed up. So make sure when you go into your spiel, you add that part. And I'll land my plane there.
He already went into his spiel, Chris. It's helicopter time. Helicopter, your rebuttal.
All right. He had made a few references to a completely separate time period than what the prompt was talking about. The prompt is talking about the transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade ended in 1790. The British made it illegal to remove any Africans from the continent and trade them into slavery in the Americas, right? Whenever you reference anything regarding slavery, okay, American slavery, you're talking about cotton and like the small hats, they got their money from cotton. What you're doing is you're getting dragged into the perception that a lot of the immigrants have from places like Jamaica and Haiti and from Africa, where they think that American history is literally only a certain couple of periods. They think American history was slavery, the civil rights movement, the 80s, the 90s, and today, right? So we got to be specific when we're talking about the Africans' role in the transatlantic slave trade, because by 1800, right, because the cotton gin wasn't invented until 1793, the transatlantic slave trade was over by then. And even prior to then, cotton had zero to do. There was zero cotton that was traded on the transatlantic slave trade. It was strictly about sugar, and it was in reference to the people in Brazil and the Caribbean. Okay, so we got to specifically talk about those people. And when we're talking about the African involvement was the transatlantic slave trade. The actual slavery that happened in America was a completely separate time period. And that's what I wanted to rebut with. And I'm going to land my plane.
Chris, final say.
I ain't had no disagreement with him. I basically was making the point of that when he was talking about the what's his name? Hold on, I had it written down because he was talking. Tony Martin, Dr. Tony Martin. He said he was running out of somewhere, right? So what I was saying is the same point that Love was making the other day. None of us would have to go through running from the hooded people and all of that stuff if we allegedly didn't get sold in the first place. So that was the only point that I was really making. And I don't disagree with anything that you said at all. You know what I'm saying? I pretty much agree with what you're saying. We shouldn't have confused time periods. We should definitely not let the Africans off of the hook for what they did. And the other thing as well, right, is that Pre-colonial Africa is a bunch of kingdoms that didn't have no damn censuses and all that stuff. So when revenue makes that talking point of saying, "Oh well, there's only 1% or 10% or whatever they say," no one really knows none of the percents because they didn't write nothing down. They didn't have no census. They didn't know how many people was doing what and this, that, and the third. So technically, right now we just have to speculate off what the YT people say because they're the one with the paperwork. Most people don't want to go off of what somebody said and all of that. We want to go off of what we can see as tangible. So, that's that. I'll land there.
All right, Chris, you ready for your question?
I am.
Are people more emotional or factual about slavery debates? Chris. Chris.
Oh yeah. Ooh, I was on mute. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna start your time over. Did you get the
Yeah.
question?
Yes, ma'am. I actually remember what the question was. I would say that it makes an emotional response for a person if they have a personal relationship for it. Like me, for example, I have an education in it, so it doesn't make it personal. But I do have a personal ancestor that was working on the Waverly Plantation in Trey Block, Mississippi. That was my relative. So I would say that if I didn't know the knowledge that I know, then it could make it personal, possibly, right? So naturally, I think if people have the knowledge, they may not get really emotional about it. But at the end of the day, it's something that, as I heard many of the great philosophers and master teachers say, that it's in our bloodstream as being here in America and where our ancestry comes from. That part, not every single black person was all slaves, but just us that actually come from that. I think it could have some ancestral ties to it that could create some type of PTSD, so to say. So I can see some people's emotional response, but I believe when you educate yourself more, then you're not really emotional on these particular topics. When you can bring up the different kingdoms that were involved in to the slavery, the different times and the Parliament writings, if you go look those things up in documents and stuff like that, and then also on the American side of understanding that not everyone was slaves. There's some people that was fighting to free themselves, different revolts, stuff like that. When you educate yourself on that, you may not be emotional because then you could sit back and respond to a person like Revenue or Ortho, them different people that pop out and they, say this, that, and the third. You would actually be able to handle that stuff a lot better when you educate yourself, in which then you won't respond so much emotionally. That's what I think about it. I'll land there.
All right, thank you, Chris. Hey, G Firm.
Comment ça va? Comment s'est passé l'état Junais? How you doing?
Hey.
How you doing?
Is this G?
Yeah, it's me. What's happening?
Oh, okay. You changed your profile picture.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Hey, you want to address the prompt?
Oh, as far as like who is really responsible for the transatlantic slave trade, there isn't a singular answer to that. If I said who's primarily responsible, it would be the Europeans, in my opinion, because the colonial superpowers are the ones that orchestrated it. They're the ones that presented, the idea and the demand, to Africa. I'm not oblivious to the fact that Africans had a role to play in it. I'm not one of those, and I don't disagree with anybody who believes that they were more complicit than I do. I think we're kind of battling semantics when it comes to that. But if we're like aware of, the influence of bad influence, I should say, on Africa, it doesn't even start with the slave trade. Conflict diamonds. There was a whole genocide in Sierra Leone and Liberia with anybody who's aware of the gentleman, I think his name escapes me now. A lot of that was influenced by the Europeans. Also the war between the Hutu and the Tutsi, a lot of that was influenced and perpetrated by the Belgium. Now, of course, we have free will and we have every right to to reject, certain propositions or what have you, but the presentation of it and the masterminds and the ones who present the ideas to them are the Europeans. I think we all know in our hearts that Africans didn't mastermind, or let's get with the Europeans and colonial superpowers and let's, decimate this tribe and sell them off to the Europeans. So that's how I feel about it. I'll land there.
Okay, y'all, let's come on, y'all. Come on, y'all, help your girl out. Let's get to that 100K before
I've been
we end
tapping
up
like crazy,
in
so
with G.
sure.
I know, right? It's a slow night over here tonight, y'all.
It's all good.
It's okay, but I really want to get to the 100K. We will see. Can we make it, y'all? Can we make it? I don't know. Anybody got any rebuttals for
Yeah, I
G?
definitely have a rebuttal.
Okay. All right, Chris.
But I like how he spoke candidly, so I'm definitely going to be respectful in my submission. One of the main things that I think that we continually keep overlooking is that there was freedom of choice, freedom to resist, freedom to not want to do whatever it is the oppressors is doing. Now, as I brought up to revenue, I'm gonna also bring up to you as well. I could just go with you and say, even though I've read multiple things to say that this is not true, let's just say that the YT man is the one who built all of the castles and all of the cannons and stuff. He supplied all of that and everything like that, right? So what do we do with the tree of forgetfulness? What do we do with that, right? Because basically, I walked around it. I went to Amina, Ghana. I was walking Amina Castle. I walked into different areas where they have the different social classes of the people who they locked up and stuff like that, right? And they showed us the tree of forgetfulness. They said that the men walked around it 9 times and the women walked around it 7 times. And then they also showed the door of return, which I walked through, which, right there leads to the water and stuff, right? So these particular names are not the names of the YT man. He didn't name these things that. It was the Africans who named these things that. So how do we continue to keep making it all the YT man's fault when these are particular names they made of this practice? They walked you around the tree so you can forget what happened to you when you went on your journey to the door of no return. So if that's what they did, then how are we just absolving them of all the punishment? It's the European man. One thing I'll say before I land, right, is who gets in trouble in modern time? Is it the dealer they charge with everything, or is it the user? And I'll land there.
Okay, G, final say. I think we gonna do it, y'all. Final say.
And what's happening, Chris? I've never spoken to you before, but I think you said a lot of things that were intelligent. You referenced a tree. I'll reference another tree. Any of us who've read the Bible and read Genesis, we know about the story of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And when it was discovered that Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they were influenced to eat of it by the serpent, even though God commanded them not to. And when he levied punishment on all of them, the one who got the strictest punishment was the serpent, the one who influenced them to do it. And I think that that's pretty relative to the conversation when we're talking about the slave trade and who's more responsible for it, because the Africans were influenced to do it. And I think that I'm going to stick with, the same pattern of judgment that God had on Adam and Eve and the serpent. I believe that the Europeans are more responsible. So if there's any judgment that will be cast on them, they should be judged harsher than the Africans that fell into temptation and allowed themselves to be used and to supply Europeans with that demand. So I'll land there.
Okay, thank you, G. You ready for your question?
Yes, ma'am.
What narrative would you correct if you could about the transatlantic slave trade?
Wow, then that's a deep question. What narrative would I um hmm what narrative would I correct? I would say the narrative would be that Africans didn't fight and didn't resist. I don't think we hear much about that. I don't think that it was something that they did without that, unconsciously or without any sort of compassion for what they deemed, I guess they deemed other tribes as another ethnic group, but they didn't see themselves in them at that particular time. But I believe that there were tribes that did try and fight unsuccessfully, because I think Revenue brought up a point that I thought was very poignant, is that during this time, you have to understand they had primitive weapons. They didn't have live ammunition. Like, that's why the Europeans were able to go around and colonize around the world, because they are the inventors. Excuse me, they're the inventors of live ammunition. So I believe that they fought unsuccessfully. Maybe they had certain successful resistance towards it. The brother Chris brought up the Amina Castle and cannons. I believe cannons can point in different directions. I believe those cannons were there possibly to keep from having the next insurrection, or probably to suppress any insurrection towards, freeing whatever slaves they had in those, that was held captive in those castles. So I'll say that.
All right, G. Somebody in the chat wanted me to ask you, who is responsible for the slavery going on today on the continent?
Well, the Africans are to answer that question. Now, to add context, I think some form of slavery goes on in different parts of the globe. We have it here via sex trafficking. There's a lot of women who are currently missing, and they're probably up under the thumb of some, pimp, and being used as a slave worker. That's a form of, slavery, in my opinion. I don't know what slavery looks like over there in Canada. I have heard it before, so I'm not going to sit and refute and say that that doesn't happen, but I think that different forms of slavery happens around the world.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, chat. Thank y'all so much. And thank you to the panelists, everybody who was tapping and engaging and, on the debate today. I really appreciate y'all. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to the mods that's here. And shout out to Helicopter for helping me, control the stage. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me on the stage.
You're welcome. Good night, y'all.